That blonde guy kicks things off by shouting Gaius, and the woman in the witch hat jumps in too, insisting it's not like they truly hate him or anything, but everything's different now. The leader flaunts their brand new status and declares they've finally leveled up into an S-rank party. He snaps at Gaius that they've got to graduate out of having to babysit an item master like him in every fight, because this situation can't keep dragging on. Gaius stood there, frozen in pure shock, staring at his friends like, wait, is this really what I think it is? With a shaky grin and sweat pouring down his face, Gaius blurts out, so, is this the moment I officially get fired? The blonde guy goes full throttle, throws a smug look and outright confirms that, to put it, yeah, straight up, that's exactly what's going on, while the rest of the squad hangs back behind. Behind him, they stared ahead like the future was theirs, ready to step into their brand new life as elites. The tavern keeps thundering, packed wall to wall, while the shock of the news finally starts to hit Gaius like a ton of bricks. Gaius leans over and glares down at the table. His eyes darken as he spits out the truth again. He's getting fired. He stared at his position, mind racing like it had no seconds to spare. And now the people he trusted still see him as nothing but a starter-class itemist. Feeling totally crushed, like he just got slapped with the truth, he really believed he was actually helping the party. But staring at them now, he can't deny it. Things have been getting weird and awkward for a while, and boom, everyone else in the group already had a partner, so he got left behind as the lone odd man out. Gaius slaps on a fake grin, tells them he gets it, and finally throws in the towel on trying to keep up with them. He's still buzzing about how they finally slammed into S-rank, and he's convinced he can pull it off solo too. Like, maybe this is exactly the moment to strike out on his own. Clutching the party's rank plate, he weighs whether to ditch the chaos and head back to the countryside for some honest, normal work. Right before he heads out, Gaius grabs the moment and asks, what do I do with all the party items I'm still stuck carrying in my inventory? The blonde leader's hair practically crackles with fury. She looks him dead in the eyes and snaps, "You're." He shuts that down hard. No way is he taking any of it. Then he orders Gaius to haul everything straight to the mansion. The witch shoots him a sharp look and calls him a worrywart and the knight. He just shrugs and flashes a casual thumbs up. She shrugs and says, at least he's nowhere near as bad as that one guy named. Gulgan's name hits the air and the truth drops hard. He's not a villain at all, he's a genuinely good man. He waves one last time, swears they'll meet again if fate lets them, and right as the knight gives a thumbs up, the moment lingers. The knight orders him to stay warm, and the priestess blurts that she's about to be lonely. Then she tells Gaius to take. He made sure he was taking care of himself. Gaius flashes them a soft smile, and calmly lays out everything to the entire group. The party just stands there, staring as Gaius lifts a hand for one last wave. He strode off alone into the quiet city streets, beneath the night sky. He pauses for one beat, then tells himself, all right, move, because the mountain of work still isn't finished. He can't stop replaying every party item he's still hauling, and now he's panicking. Should he really rush to drop it all off at the mansion? Or is he even going to keep carrying all this gear? He'd make himself fit inside that place. And yeah, there's still one more problem breathing down their necks. The Draconix mounts need tending pronto. Gaius decides he'll pull one final job for them, scrub out the stables, swap the feed, and then finally hang it up for good. Gaius turns and starts walking away, but he couldn't shake this nagging worry, like his mind was stuck racing over 1,000 things. He just couldn't stop worrying whether his old party could even survive without him there to wrangle the gear. He freezes in the middle of the street for a beat, letting everything crash through his mind in total silence. Then he shrugs it all off, bursts into a wild scream, I'm finally free, and throws his hands up like he just hit the jackpot. The whole story snaps sideways when a narrator box basically tells the readers, yeah, you already know exactly where this is headed. You're probably bracing for some run-of-the-mill XL tale, or a huge, dramatic social storm to kick things off. But that's not what's coming. The story doesn't stop, it keeps roaring on, like it refuses to let the moment end, teasing that everyone's just waiting for Gaius to slam back in with some massive, no-holds-barred comeback. But here's the twist, the readers are totally off, and the story doesn't work the way they think. Back at the mansion, the party leader smirks to himself like, yes, that job is finally done. Beaming like he owns the place, he laughs and says he's just relieved Gaius didn't lose it and blow up in a rage. The party leader lounges back with a smug smirk, casually admitting that Gaius was actually pretty damn decent. But Hannah drops her gaze to the table, and suddenly the big question hits. Was trying to outshine him really a mistake? She shrugs it off, insisting it couldn't be helped, because Gaius was just a nobody item master with zero drive. And after all this time, they finally made. She hit S-rank and now she's convinced they never would have made it with someone like him, slowing them down. The party leader barrels in and snuffs the awkward tension, telling Goljan and Hannah there's literally nothing to worry about. He waves it off with a smug laugh, swearing that cutting Gaius loose was the right call for everybody involved. Even going up to the girls and asking if they truly believe Gaius would want it. Wouldn't it just break your heart to see them slumped like this? Gulgan lifts his drink, nods along, and agrees that Gaius was a total. He cracks a grin, then whips around to Lurisha like, "So what do you think?" And Lurisha just nods like crazy. God's like, "Yeah, of course." But before he can finish, she's already kicked the whole thing to the side and moving on to the next thing. Every fresh start deserves a huge feast. Go big from the very first bite. Lurisha refuses to let the vibes die. She keeps the energy blazing. They rallied the group, telling them to step in the footsteps of those before them and throw a full-on celebration for this brand new beginning. And the party leader beams with a massive grin, practically bursting as he tells her, "You're totally right." They burst into the room, waving their brand new S-rank cards, screaming that they finally clawed their way to the top, and that this is where the Crescent Claw starts its next chapter. Everyone snatches their drinks, clinks mugs hard, and roars with cheers. Then beer rockets everywhere, splashing down as the whole crew plunges into a massive feast, celebrating like there's no tomorrow. Celebrate their huge promotion. Once everyone stuffed themselves, the party snapped into motion and hit the road back to their home base. But when they finally roll in, they freeze, because the wall is buried under a monstrous mountain of monster guts and scrap, piled higher than anyone could have imagined. The whole crew just freezes in place, jaws dropped, staring at the wreck blocking their front door like they can't believe it. Staring down a mountain of dragon scales, piled so high it felt unreal. Scales, old armor, and rare crystals just dumped out in the yard, like the whole treasure was left to rot there, leaving the whole team spirals into total confusion as they scramble to understand why all this chaos even shows up in the first place. The blonde party leader just stands there, staring at the wreckage, demanding what this is and what in the world could have caused it. The whole crew piles into the house, and the moment they see what's going on, they start screaming, completely lost and totally baffled. As they lean in, they realize the pile isn't junk at all. Real dragon skin is just there, staring them in the face. With that giant cyclops eye, and a pile of rare monster materials they immediately knew could make something amazing, they recognized the value. Watch how he gets them to see it. This mountain of junk is packed with treasure, and even this massive griffin is proof. And get this, there's a whole stash of camping gear buried underground, waiting to be dug up. Tucked in deep there too, stuffed with a whole load of useful items, tools, and gear. Ask if Gaius had really been hoarding all those materials this entire time. The knight spots the claw and instantly gets choked up, because it drags him back to that brutal life-or-death brawl with the griffin. The leader snaps and explodes in a shout, demanding to know if they're really going to waste time reminiscing right now. The instant they spot all their things dumped outside, shock hits so hard it shakes the whole. They shot into action and got sober in a flash. While they were still busting out jokes, the Crescent Claw S-rank crew finally clocked what was really going on. How brutal it really is, and the blonde leader starts sweating the second Lurisha snaps that she can feel everything going south. But hold up, let's rewind just a little, because this whole mess didn't start here. Right before the Crescent Claw members got slammed into full-blown panic, we got pulled back a few hours. Right around then, those idiots were still partying like their new beginning actually meant something. Gaius stands in the stables, ruffling the dragon horses' manes and telling them to look after themselves. When one of the animals lets out a heartbreaking cry, like it somehow knows he's about to break, he vanished for good. Gaius flashes them one last calm smile, then turns and walks away like he's sealing their fate. He slams to a stop in front of that towering mountain of loot and materials, staring at the pile like, did I really leave too much behind? Honestly, you should hold onto those items for the perfect moment and unleash them all at once. He's gathered up and Gaius whips around to stare at his tools, knocking around thoughts about how his negotiation skills pull rare drops off the shelf. Then reality hits. He doesn't have time to babysit that stuff for the party anymore. Still, he flashes a grin, tells himself they're not rookies, and figures they'll hold their own without him. Handling materials and chatting up merchants is everyday adventurer life, so Gaius finally feels like he's checked every box and delivered everything he was meant to for them. He decides to leave right away, hit his usual rounds, and stop by his regular clients one final time. They spun into the night, muttering that they're no rookies, over and over as they vanish. The real question is this: can Crescent Claw actually pull off the simple stuff Gaius is asking for? The whole crew is crumpled on the floor, utterly wrecked and miserable, and just when it looks like they're headed home, they hit a wall, doors won't open, mansions locked down, and now they're stuck in some cheap, crappy inn. The party is still trapped at the inn, and the leader blurts out like, so what are we even supposed to do with all this gear and these items we're lugging around? Hannah snaps, saying the materials are meant to be sold, and Larisha fires back that they still. You've got a massive pile of rare drops too. Larisha keeps pushing forward, insisting it'd be an absolute tragedy if they just let all that priceless loot go to waste. So the boss finally cracks and admits he's never once sold materials himself. Then he leans in and grills Galjan for answers, only for Hannah to mumble, "I don't remember how either." They crowd the floor in a circle, and then boom, a wild idea finally slams into all of them at once. The leader snaps his head up, and for the first time, hope sparks. He finally thinks he's found the answer to their problem, and as they pile into bed, he leans in and tells the girls, "Don't worry, somehow it'll all work out." He decides the very first thing they're doing tomorrow morning is calling a merchant to handle the loot. Honestly, all four of them are running on fumes. They just can't stand it anymore. They'd rather bury their problems than face them. And just like that, the sun crests the horizon, boom, morning hits, and the whole crew is officially awake. The crew heads to a nearby shop called Kiruf, one place that swears it'll take pretty much anything. They barge into the chaos of the store and sprint straight to the counter, heading for the guy running the place to talk to him. The leader breaks into a huge grin and asks the clerk if he can swing by to grab the pile of materials they're trying to sell, but the clerk just glares back, frozen in place. The shopkeeper suddenly asks if they're the same bunch that kicked Gaius out, and the whole party is stunned into silence. The blonde leader is absolutely reeling, because somehow everyone already knows about their dirty little private party drama, and Hannah and the knight blow up because the clerk keeps shouting Gaiuser and calling them, those guys, like they're nobody. Larisha snaps into the complaints too, demanding they call her Miss, instead of letting anyone disrespect her like that. The shopkeeper finally caves, even as he keeps telling them, "Bring the gear to me like you're supposed to." The leader shoots off a quick apology for being such a hassle, then snaps into gear as they prep to finally move out. The four of them cram into the merchant's cart, then tear off to cash in and unload every last scrap of leftover loot. The shopkeeper leans back, eyes wide, and devours the massive mountain of loot the crew dragged in. He just glares at that towering mountain of gear, like it's not even worth blinking at. The party leader starts flexing, firing questions at him like, "Do you even see dragons or griffins out there that often?" But the clerk shrugs off the flex and instead grills them, asking how long they've been adventuring and whether they've known Gaius at all. The leader finally cracks and admits it all started 3 years ago, and they spent about 2 straight years working with Gaius. Hannah and the rest of the crew strut around like they own the past, acting all high and mighty. Even the shopkeeper straight up tells them, "You've been with Gaius since you were fresh, brand new rookies." He lets out a heavy sigh and mutters that he can't tell if they're the luckiest people on earth or the unluckiest. Then he trails off, leaving. Hannah, Larisha, and the knight are left standing there, staring with blank, utterly stunned faces. The knight finally snaps, asking if they're being laughed at, and the girls instantly realize, yeah, they're the ones getting mocked. Larisha finally catches on that they're being mocked, while the clerk just stares at the whole group like they're absolute idiots. He points at the towering pile, like he's daring the world to come closer. He stares at this pile of loot and basically yells, "You're really trying to pawn off all this junk to me?" The party leader just stands there, staring into the void with a deadpan face, like his brain refuses to catch up to what's happening. The shopkeeper snaps, screaming at them like, "Are you really trying to dump all this garbage in my shop?" It lands like a hammer on the leader. He stumbles backward and he blurts out, "Is our material really just trash?" And the clerk snaps his finger and roars, "You're dead wrong if you think you can just sell anything you stumble across." He cuts to the chase and tells them point blank, Gaius wasn't hoarding things for some random reason. No, there's a real motive behind it, and that's when it all clicks. Turns out the castle only scoops up giant monster parts when there's an official notice. So yeah, most of this haul is basically worthless. He tells you straight up, even for medium results, more isn't the goal, because the prep costs are brutally expensive. They treat that pile of parts like it's nothing but firewood if they're not going to process it themselves. The clerk won't stop yelling at them, cutting them off mid-sentence like, "Use your." He leaned in just for a second, then called him out, like, for nothing at all. He roars that if they don't know what to do with all that loot, they should just cram it into their item pouch and get out of there. The party leader just stands there doing nothing, like the calm before the storm. Standing there with a completely blank stare, he looked like no one had ever spoken to him like this before. As the clerk looks away, he snaps to his own thoughts. Gaius would never pull something this stupid, so it's crystal clear that the leader is totally out of his depth. Yet he still blurts that they'll buy a brand new item pouch no matter what. He's honestly totally baffled, because no one has ever scolded him a day in his life. Hannah pops up from the back, grinning, and tells him she's got the cash, then demands he build her a bag with the biggest capacity he can make. The shopkeeper gauges their size and shoots a stern warning. Turning those materials around will take a whole day, no ifs, and they'd better come up with the money. Which makes the leader's nerves spike as he presses the guy for the exact total, and the clerk rubs his chin, starts crunching numbers, and tells them it'll come out to roughly. The clerk slashes the price down to 12 gold coins, and the party leader just stares, like his soul got ripped clean out of him. Hannah can't even take in the number, but the leader snaps instantly and screams that price is a straight-up robbery. The clerk just stands there with his eyes shut, soaking up every last bit of disrespect like he's totally unshaken, almost terrifyingly so. Suddenly he leans in with a horrifying stare and snaps, asking if they think doing business is some kind of joke, which slams both of them into panic, and they bow so fast and apologize so hard for stepping way out of line. He keeps the heat on, making it crystal clear that the only reason they're even seeing this price is because he still has respect for Gaius. He basically tells them, "Be grateful I'm even talking to you, because the shop isn't buying huge beasts at all right now." He tells them straight up, sorting all their mess is going to mean shutting his doors on everyone else. And if they're still convinced he's ripping them off, then fine, send their stuff home and watch it rot in the dirt. The clerk slams for full payment right this second, and the whole party just crumples, defeated, drained and broke. The clerk glares at them and snaps that if they want the job done right, they've got to cough up the full price, or else it's a no-go. They stormed out and left the whole party looking wrecked, like they'd just lost their best friend, empty, drained, and utterly crushed. Turns out the shopkeeper wasn't bullying him at all, he was just misunderstood. He just snapped because the party had the audacity to tag him a scammer. The truth hit them hard. If Gaius was still around, he'd have handled it all for cheaper, and with a way better attitude too. While the old party is scrambling and getting crushed, Gaius is already out in the middle of the forest, alone. He's just standing there with a bunch of new faces when this young sword-wielding guy steps up, and he's thanking him over and over for saving his life. And the girl beside him is basically begging to hand him some kind of reward for saving the day. Gaius flashes a warm smile and tells them straight up that he doesn't need any reward. He leans over and stares at the dead guy like it just happened. He mutters that it's pure torture to run into monsters like that, just trying to pick herbs and nothing more. The rookie girl leans in and tells Gaius, mana drained completely, and she could only think, "This is it, I'm done." She was buzzing with joy. He jumped in and somehow tracked down the exact herbs she'd been needing. Gaius just waves it off like it's nothing, muttering that it's no big deal, and then he cuts himself off mid-sentence. Happened to stumble on exactly where the plants were growing, and just as the rookies wave goodbye, he can't help but think, maybe being a guide for the new kids isn't such a bad idea asterisk. He turns to his mount Sucre and asks, "You with me?" And the Draconix answers with a tiny, unmistakable noise as if it's saying, "Yeah, let's do it," while, as Gaius quietly admits to himself that he's starting to feel real worry creeping in. By the crackling campfire, he prays his old party isn't out there stirring up trouble for innocent people. But honestly, he has zero idea what's really going down with his old teammates right this second. Later on, the rookies sprint back to the guild and spill the story. Some mysterious adventurer swooped in and saved them. But the guild staff already knows exactly who you're talking about. Gaius, the Crescent Claw reject who got kicked out. People all around town are buzzing that Gaius' name keeps rising and rising, even though he's moved on and isn't running with his old crew anymore. While all that's going on, everyone starts whispering that Crescent Moon's claw is nothing but a joke, and their name gets stomped into the dirt. It makes you wonder, are these guys ever gonna collide again someday down the road? But let's be real, they're absolutely going to collide sooner or later. Everyone can see it coming. Most of you are probably thinking the same thing right now, because Gaius just keeps charging ahead. But you never truly know how the ride will turn, and there's no way this story can just slam shut on a note like this. And just like that, the side story of the failing party, aka the Crescent Moon's Claw Chronicles, kicks off, showing the crew is fighting to stay standing as they march straight into whatever disaster the next chapter is about to unleash. Right now, the whole team is getting wrecked in real time by a general store owner who's losing it, screaming at the top of his lungs. And honestly, these spoiled kids don't get a single second to feel sorry for themselves, because they're already scrambling to survive the lecture. While everyone else charges ahead, the old crew is trapped in the same place, unable to move on. Gaius left behind a mountain of stuff, and now you're stuck diving through it all, sorting, hauling, doing every miserable grunt task. Hannah looks completely out of it, face burning red, mumbling that she's just super busy, but honestly, she's clearly distracted way more than she's letting on. Productive, she digs into the pile, yanks something out, then waves Gul'jan over to get a look, like she's already too excited to finish the sentence. With his grin blazing, Gul'jan spins around, practically vibrating with excitement over the pile of junk, and asks Hannah what she's found. She raises a horn and asks if it's from a red cyclops, and boom, it yanks her straight back to the good old days. Hannah launches into a story about how awesome Gulgan used to be, and she zeroes in on that moment when he was still new, desperately holding the line with the cover skill he'd just learned, just to keep them safe. And just like that, he sold it as his chivalry and his burning need to protect Hannah, right up to the point where the story cuts off with that. That's strength, but here's the brutal truth. The reality is way totally different. Gaius was back there, doing all the brutal heavy lifting just to keep them alive. Now they're just standing there, flirting over a pile of trash like it's a date, while the shop owner gapes at them like he's totally lost his mind. The shop owner keeps his eyes on the crew and suddenly goes, "Oh, I totally get why Gaius bilayed on this party." He hears this strange noise creeping from behind him, whips around, and tries to figure out what the heck is happening. The Draconix mounts slumped in their stalls, utterly worn out and starving. They don't even make a peep, just lock eyes on him with these heartbreaking stares while he stands there, frozen in the moment. They're utterly stunned when the blonde leader strides right up and casually asks the owner if they're taking care of the mounts. Hannah just freezes there, all awkward and mute, while the leader sheepishly admits he hasn't checked on them today. The knight swears he didn't do it either, and that's when Larisha finally snaps to it. Gaius has been the one pulling every string. All along, the shop owner just stands there with that fake smile, fighting to hold it together as he tries not to completely lose it. He finally snaps and screams, blasting them as huge idiots for being so useless, because the second the owner's rage crashes down, the whole party totally loses it, overwhelmed by the fury. The shop owner stares at the party leader and blurts, "You seriously just tossed every single chore onto Gaius." He couldn't believe they wouldn't even lift a finger to help, and he muttered to himself that these kids were straight up useless. The owner snaps that this is a massive problem, but the leader shrugs it off with excuse after excuse, claiming Gaius always insisted. When he tries to do it himself, the owner snaps into a scary rage and demands, "Why won't you just offer to do the work?" It's his own beast. When the leader finally realizes it, panic hits hard, sweat pours down his face, and he blurts out, "No one ever told me I'd have to do this." The owner locks eyes with him and demands, "How can you be so calm, like this isn't even a big deal?" When that stable trough just sits there, packed with old dry straw that nobody has touched in forever. He barks at them to get moving, swap out the straw, then rush to feed the animals and refill their water right now. While they wrestle with the chores, the owner snaps that Draconics lose their minds if they're not cared for, and they'd better not stop now, and he points out that these creatures will never, ever stay. Never trust someone to lead you if they don't actually care enough to look after you. The shop owner won't shut up. He keeps lecturing them and slaps them with a warning about these mounts. Mounts will go utterly berserk in no time if they aren't treated right, because taking care of your ride is the absolute most important rule. For any adventure to follow, turns out these guys were so caught up in non-stop battles and dating, like they had no room to breathe, until they completely forgot the basics, and now the Draconix mounts are just sitting there, staring, completely done with this whole mess. They can't stop thinking how massive and miserable this is, like it's the worst kind of pain. As the party leader grinds through chores, and the owner barks that he has to get them done twice a day, or else finish before sunset. Meanwhile, Hannah clocks that all their rare gear is breaking down, and they need to act fast or it's all over. Fixed with better materials. The knight gets absolutely berated for not even knowing his own potions, at all, and that's when things get ugly. Is something he should have figured out years ago. Yet the owner can't even process how clueless this whole group is. Then at last, the sun clawed its way up and lit up a brand new day. The entire crew is wiped clean inside their hideout. Party leader and everyone else just slumps over the table. While Larisha stays buried under the covers, she grills everyone who's actually gonna make breakfast. Since nobody moves, Galjan snaps his gaze up and tells Larisha, "Just do it, it feels right," but then she stumbles. He snaps right away and tells him to quit inventing lies straight from his own imagination. Larisha snaps up from the table, already fuming, and tells Larisha, "Don't yell the second morning hits." Gulgan tries to dump the work on Hannah, and he taunts her by reminding her she complained about Gaius is cooking and needs to know what he's doing, but Hannah snaps that he's digging up every tiny detail again. Then she whips around and points right back at him, yelling since Gulgan fired Gaius, he's stuck cooking now, while Larisha lounges on the bed and points out how Hannah is yelling again, right after she told everyone to shut up. In the end, Gulgan gets trapped in the kitchen, hovering over the stove like it's his last shot, trying to fry up a meal for everyone. Gaius is trapped in the kitchen cooking up food, and while he works, doubt gnaws at him, like he just might have made the biggest mistake of his life. Thinking back to the moment Gulgan first grilled him, "Why won't you just quit being an item master when you switch jobs?" Back in those woods, the two of them sat huddled by a roaring campfire, trading a brutally serious talk about his career. Gaius just flashed a grin and told him, Item Master is the only path that feels like it's made for me. He started firing off his specialized abilities, his full inventory, his wild throwing range, and those sharp appraisal skills. Pointing out the Item Master is the only class that can truly grab all of those pieces and fuse them into one. Gaius was dead sure that if someone could truly master, once they nailed every single one of those skills, nobody could touch them, not even the flashy, top-tier classes that most adventurers worship. He swore he'd grind harder than anyone and prove he deserved to stay, begging the group to let him take over all the support. But right here in the present, he just stands there, clutching a plate of food like it's the whole world, staring at everything that went wrong and thinking, how did I screw this up so badly? The table finally gets stacked with a mountain of rice and warm, fresh bread, but even when everyone finally slid into the kitchen and sat down for a real meal in the game, Gaius is totally trapped in his own thoughts. He replayed every moment he spent nurturing those Draconix mounts. He remembers being out, like it still burns in his mind. He slipped into the stables all by himself, and not once did he ask the rest of the party for a single bit of help. Mostly, he figured it was just your job. Take care of your own mount like that's how the world works. It wasn't just the animals either. This whole crew basically survived on his negotiation magic every time they hit the shops. He starts wondering what the others were even doing, while he's stuck holding the whole party together. And the moment her answer landed, it hit him like a truck. Meanwhile, they were just hanging out, flirting up a storm, while he carried the whole weight. Gaius fights to stay steady, but one tear slips down anyway when he finally realizes just how much. Sitting all alone, he let the tears spill right into his food, like nobody even noticed what he was going through. Gulgan just sits there with his back turned, his shoulders trembling, and the rest of the group can only freeze in shock, because they don't know what to do next. Hannah clocks it. He isn't just upset, he's straight up sobbing. Then Larisha panics on the spot, yelling over and over that their leader is really crying right in front of them. The second the four of them huddle in the kitchen, the whole place goes dead silent. They just sit there at the table, trapped in awkward silence, until Gulgan starts to crack piece by piece. The crew finally swallows the truth. They see there's nothing they can fix, so they just stay put and let him break down in tears. Turns out the members of Crescent Claw were never prepared for their big shot leader to snap like this. Later, the entire party marches through the heart of town looking utterly crushed, and the whole street just stares as they walk by. As they pass through, the locals start whispering and pointing, saying that they're the infamous crew that dragged Gaius out of the party and didn't look back. Rumors are flying, people are buzzing that they tried to pin price gouging on the local shop, and nobody can believe it. Everyone is insisting they're not built for an S-rank party, like those top-tier weapons and gear are just getting wasted on them. The crowd won't shut up, hurling insults and claiming adventurers act like they own the place, so the entire party has no choice but to swallow it and stand there. Is buzzing with people, and everyone's staring around like they're totally lost, because of some. A loud commotion erupts, and Hannah just stands there, stunned, while Gulgan snaps his head over his shoulder, demanding to know what the whole racket is about. Above the city streets, shouts and raw chaos start blasting through the air, and then this random dude bursts out of nowhere with both hands raised, screaming that somebody, anybody, help him. Gulgan and the girls freeze mid-step as someone in the crowd throws out a desperate plea, begging that they stop them, and the Draconix mounts just snapped clean in half, and now they're rampaging through the middle of town. Monstrous beasts are crashing through the streets, like nothing can stop them, sending every local sprinting for their lives. A guy blurts out that the wholesaler snagged way too many of them, and somehow couldn't keep them under control, adding that this is what always happens when people bite off more than they can handle. A kid screams, "Call the guild guard, right now," because Gear just stands there. Amid the smoke and flying dust, he just stands there, watches it unfold, and goes silent for a beat, then snaps that they should jump in too. Gears feels a cold sweat start to creep in, because he can't shake the fear that his old group might have been pulling the exact same kind of stunt, while the Draconix mounts go absolutely feral, ripping the whole place apart. The Cairo off-shop clerk is completely losing it, yelling in panic because one of those wild beasts broke into his shop like a wrecking ball and smashed everything in its path. The armored knight from the Crescent Claw party strides up like a storm's warning, ready to unleash a special skill. He digs his heels into the ground, bursts into glowing power, and becomes a human shield to protect the whole town. Every beast freezes mid-action and stares him down, like they all locked onto the same target at once. He thundered into the night, refusing to move as all three of them closed in. The three Draconics crash into the knight's shield in one brutal hit. Pure impact, no mercy, but Hannah stares down from above, holding her breath, waiting for the perfect second to strike. Then she focuses her. Now that her power is in motion, It's time for the dark mage to unleash a special skill. Hannah yells out to the freezing. With a breath of air, she commands it to take shape, forge a path ahead as she slips. She rips open an icicle road and blasts huge frozen spikes straight out of the ground. The beasts are trapped in. Then the high cleric Luarisha strides in, determined to end it for good. She rockets into the air, twirls her staff like a blur, and lands on a dime, unleashing a wave of soothing magic that blasts the beasts slam into them and knock them out cold. Now they're totally out, sprawled in the middle of the ice. The crowd watching can't even process it. They're screaming that the party crushed it so fast it's unreal. Hannah whips her head around and asks, "Did we finally wipe out every beast?" But right then, Luridia spots something, and her whole body locks up like she just got hit by a jolt. A stray Draconix bursts out of the smoke and charges straight at a helpless This little kid has no clue what's about to hit him, and everyone erupts into screams, because the beast is charging straight for that kid, while the woman nearby totally snaps and starts screaming at the top of her lungs. Before the beast could lunge at him, Hulgen lunges in and unleashes his rank 1 skill to smash in with a jaw-dropping hit. Then the Draconix gets blasted backward and slams into the ground, so hard it's knocked clean out of the fight. The little kid just freezes on the spot, staring up with eyes the size of coins, completely stunned by what he's about to see. Galgen leans in, spots the kid shaking a little and fires off a quick, worried question. "You good after that near miss?" The crowd watching is totally stunned, blurting out, "What just happened?" When they realize he didn't cut with the edge, he struck with the flat of his blade. So yeah, it's explained that you use the back of the sword instead. You can hit them with a brutal shock that drops them cold. No blade needed. Gulgan grips his weapon and stands there, and you're told this isn't just brute force. He's unleashing a high-level paladin move called hold back asterisk, the kind that fights by showing mercy instead. They call this crew Crescent Moon's Claw, and they're S-ranked to the bone. Frank Party, yeah, they totally look the part, especially with Gulgen leading the charge. No matter how wild the drama gets, you can tell their real fighting skills are the main event, and the rest of the party. Huddled behind their leader, they're braced and ready to strike. As everyone's eyes are glued to the action, a tiny hand slips forward and reaches out. He slips out and yanks on Gulgan's cloak. Yeah, it's that same little kid from before, and he's staring right at him. He's staring straight at Gulgan, ready to thank him for pulling him out alive. And that twists the knife, catching the party leader completely off guard, like it came out of nowhere. His eyes are practically glowing as he tells Gulgan how strong and awesome he is, like he just found the next hero to worship. The townspeople nearby huddle and whisper, and you can practically feel the vibe flip as they watch everything unfold. In the middle of the crowd, one guy's smile cracks, and worry slams into his chest. He wore a worried look, and you could feel it. Everyone's starting to wonder if they totally misread the whole situation. On the Crescent Moons, Claw actually stepped in and saved the entire town, because he thought everyone was just downplaying how insanely strong they were at their party. But when you see Gulgan, you can't help wondering, does this kid's praise just inflate his ego into something absolutely massive? Ego's back again, just like before. Gulgan starts talking to himself, nodding like, "Yeah, I'm seriously that cool," and then he fully drinks his own hype, because he's about to go even harder. And the crowd won't let up. Wild cheers and loud screams erupt non-stop for their brand new heroes as they celebrate the rescue. Gulgan gets totally swept up in the moment. He cackles and tells the kid he's dead on about how awesome he is, while Shana flashes a smug grin and snaps to the townspeople, "We're an official S-rank party in Lurisha," then doubles down. Their whole mission is pure service to the people, straight-up noble adventurers doing it the right way. Gulgan drops into a bold pose and yells that anyone who needs help is right here, then fires up the group and declares it's time to head straight for the guild. Inside the guild, it's weirdly calm, because the clerk is just calmly helping a regular customer at the front desk, until the front doors explode inward with a massive crash, and the guild clerk is left totally blindsided. Every single one of them crowds the doorway, and the light blasts behind them like they've stepped out of some kind of. When Gulgan roars out a loud greeting to everyone inside, he's already pumped up and ready to tackle whatever job comes next. Gulgan strides up to the counter, rips into a shout, and claims they're the Crescent Moon Claws. He barges in demanding an S-rank quest on the spot, but the clerk just stares at them, unshaken, and asks straight up if they're really the four from that party. Then she says she's got a special message for the whole group, and with a huge grin she tells them, "No quests for you today," then slams the door on it and sends everyone back to training. The whole party just stops cold. Everyone's face goes totally blank, like their brains can't even process a single word she just said. They just froze at the counter, not a muscle moving, and left everyone else in line stuck waiting behind them. Hannah finally finds her voice, stammers out something about the training, and the heavy shielder snaps, roaring, what the hell is going on? Larisha snaps into full-blown panic. She begged in tears, screaming how unfair it was that she had to start training right now, of all times, when they were meant to be pros. The clerk won't budge an inch, then lays it out. Someone reported them for being jerks to shopkeepers and totally acting like complete amateurs. She snaps that they need to redo the beginner courses. And if they fail that dungeon trial with a guild helper, their licenses get yanked for good. Realizing their whole careers hang by a thread, the group slumps in total defeat, like their souls just got ripped out of their bodies. As they freeze in stunned silence, the other guild members huddle close and start whispering, loud enough to make it feel like trouble is brewing. And then pointing at them, the realization hits. These heroes are in massive trouble. People nearby start pointing and staring, whispering that the party's been botching everything left and right lately, like it's all spiraling, and that's why the gossip got even nastier. Everyone's guessing they caused that chaos in town earlier, and Hannah starts spiraling over every rumor flying around, and the knight finally realizes just how awful this all looks. The whole group starts panicking that Golgan is about to spiral into depression from Then he just stands there, a creepy little smirk glued to his face, and he starts chuckling under his breath like he's got a secret. He starts acting like a straight-up. An egomaniac prattles on about how everything people say is just pointless noise, like birds chirping, and then claims that being gifted means you just have to survive everyone's jealousy, because he honestly keeps telling himself it'll all work out fine even though it's painfully obvious to everyone else that things are absolutely not okay. That clerk doesn't even flinch. He just barrels in and asks if they're really going to start the training. Golgan keeps playing the hero, insisting this whole disaster is nothing but a trial, tailor-made for an S-class guy like him. The pressure's actually sparking him up, and he screams for them to roll out the beginner training course. He bursts out yelling that he'll ace the whole thing and make it look effortless, claiming the party will score a flawless win and walk away with a perfect score for sure, to crank the whole crew up and get everyone moving. So Hannah admits she usually dreads dealing with annoying stuff like this. But she's got zero intention of sitting back and taking it. Take that loss, because the knight is getting loud too, pushing the idea that if they're going this far, they might as well go all in. Larisha bursts back in, rounds everyone up and screams, "Get that perfect score," starting the moment you say hello, and then the clip cuts to Larisha. HIPES pumped the whole crew up, shouting for everyone to get ready to roll, and the whole party screams at the top of their lungs, shouting they're ready to train, because the guild is in charge now. Honestly, it's impossible to know if the Crescent Moon Claws actually learned their lesson, or if they're just gearing up for something even worse. They're swept up in the moment, because they have zero clue how brutal this training session is about to get. Everything's about to explode into chaos when a demon. The instructor finally storms in for this brutal beginner's course. Welcome to hell. The beginner's training F. Finally, it fires up, and this is where it gets insane. It's basically a high-stakes tech session. Anyone who wants in can show up, and the guild decides if you've got what it takes. Once they finish the course, the guild seals the deal, officially certifying their skills and handing them a legit rank. The room's packed wall-to-wall with every kind of person, all clawing their way up, hungry to break into the next level of life. Some people don't want a normal life, they're hunting thrill after thrill, while everyone else might be chasing something completely different. The guild is cracking down hard, zeroing in on anyone about to lose their license for their garbage behavior. And that's why this room gets packed with the strangest crew imaginable, right down to the Crescent Moon Claws. Are definitely feeling the heat as someone in the crowd screams about the massive crisis they're all trapped inside. Hannah sits there, fighting for every last bit of calm, realizing she's only here because she got caught in Golgan's mess, but the way every person in that room keeps staring at them is starting to creep into their heads and won't let up. She's clawing to get under her skin, and she keeps telling herself she's a top-tier S-rank black mage, like that S supposed to make it better, but she can't stop, and shouldn't have to sit trapped in some mind-numbing lecture with a bunch of clueless rookies. This whole situation is humiliating her to death. Then she glances over and sees something that blows her fuse. She snaps at her teammates, screaming at them because that night Larisha and Golgan are locked in and studying like total goody-two-shoes. So she blurts, "Why are you two rushing ahead like that?" Golgan is taking this way too seriously. He's shouting at Hannah about S-rankers like they're a rule of nature. And yeah, they're basically required to nail a perfect score. Mostly because he needs them to step up and be the kind of role models every rookie in that room can learn from. Larisha lunges in right after her, grinning from ear to ear as she pitches her idea and says, so he told Hannah they had to start drilling those old exam questions. Like someone asking, is it okay to just dump a dead monster in the forest and leave it there? No cleanup, because you're too wiped to care. Hannah locks eyes on the page, second-guessing every word as stress crushes her from the inside. She finally snaps and screams that it's a trash question, because no matter what she answers, she feels like it'll be wrong. A sudden, deep laugh blasts from the front of the room, and she freezes mid-breath, snapping her head up. A grinning old man leans in and tells the crew, "I'm honestly impressed. You all showed up early just to cram and study." He steps up, calls himself Varian, the instructor for this beginner course, and tells everyone it's great to meet them. The old man keeps cackling to himself, and Hannah just sits there, staring, like she can't believe a word of it. Standing there with her arms crossed, she just stared him down like, "You're a total loser." Varian jabs a finger at the book on the desk, and blurts out that awful question Hannah was just ranting about. Hannah just props her chin on her hand, looking totally unimpressed, and says the answer is obviously false. Varian launches into a warning about what happens when you ditch a monster's corpse in the woods, laying out exactly how it all spirals into disaster, showing how. Knowing that the stink of death and rot brings a whole storm of problems, because it unleashes disease, and summons even scarier monsters to crawl into the area. Varian blurts out that this doesn't, right there, cutting it off. It's not just for cleaning up after a hunt. He tells them, loud and clear, that skipping harvesting materials from a monster that size is completely wrong. To blow up at a merchant who's actually ready to take that corpse off their hands. Varian gives a sharp little laugh, then tells the group that if they fight however they want, they'll end up no better than some common thug. A lecture kicks off for real, and he grins and tells everyone they're starting with the true fundamentals of becoming an adventurer. Gaius stared up at the night sky from his campsite, wondering if his old party members were still out there, safe and doing okay. But instead of moving, he just sinks into the quiet beside the fire, while Sucre sprawls nearby, catching his breath. Suddenly, he snaps out of it, stops cold, and asks himself why he's wasting time worrying about those people at all. Because he remembers it was them who threw him out in the first place. Just thinking about the old days sends him into a rage, and it only gets worse the moment he sees memories of them squeezing out every moment to flirt with each other, like they lived for it. They were always paired up, the paladin and the black mage, side by side, and the heavy shielder charged in, and honestly, the high priest and her were a perfect match too. Like the universe was trying way too hard with that super cliché twist. Gaius mutters to himself, shooting the same question over and over. Our backline support item masters just straight up unpopular with everyone. And finally, he snaps, yelling that he wants girls to like him too. The nearby bushes explode with movement, as if something's about to strike. The rustling explodes in the air, and Gaius immediately whips his head toward the sound. He narrows his eyes and stares into the dark, trying to claw the truth out of the shadows. When he gets close, he snaps to it. The steps sound like a real person, not some rampaging monster, and there's zero hostility in them either. A girl steps out of the crowd and blurts that she finally found him, calling his name like she's known him forever. Gaius shot a look back at her, like her face hit a memory he couldn't quite catch. She pops up and goes, "I'm Miria," then leans in and asks, "Do you still remember me from before?" It all clicks for him, then he remembers that dungeon raid, how he saved her after she got split from her old party, back when he first met her. The campfire crackles between them as the night slips into silence, and the two of them sink by the roaring flames to catch up on everything that's happened since the last time they saw each other. Miria tells him, "Back when we first met, I was barely a mage. Turns out she's been training for real, to become a full-on magic swordsman now." Miria stares at him and shock hits. She barely recognizes him at all. He's way stronger than the last time they met, and Gaius can't stop wondering what dragged her all the way out here in the first place. He says an advanced class has no business in a beginner's forest, but she shoots back, "I've got a reason, and I'm not backing down." He just freezes there, stunned to the bone, as he waits for her to finally explain herself. Miria starts panicking, fingers twitching non-stop as she tries to force the words out. She locks eyes with him like she's daring him to look away. Blushing like crazy, she nervously asks if he'll do something with her and finally shatters the silence. She blurts it out, asking if he'd want to team up and form a party together. Sucre the Mount just lies on the grass, staring around like the whole world's got him totally baffled. Meanwhile, Gaius just stands there, staring at her with his mouth hanging open. And at last he snaps, he loses control and blurts out, "Why on earth would you ever want to team up with me?" It's basically screaming to everyone that Miria's head over heels for Gaius, just by the way she's acting. But Gaius just freezes there, totally clueless, like nothing around him even exists. Even though Gaius keeps insisting he wants everyone to like him. He's not even clueless, he's downright hopeless with girls. Then Instructor Varian slams the final notes onto the blackboard and tells the class, "That's it, the indoor lecture is over." He tells them, "This afternoon we're heading to the training grounds, real combat practice, no games." Varian rallies everyone to take a breather, make sure they're on time, and then the students rush off to lunch. At the cafeteria, Goljan rips into the morning lectures, saying they were so painfully boring his head, practically felt like it was going to explode. And he surges with confidence, then yells that he'll absolutely crush the combat portion later today. She gives him this tired look and basically shuts him down, like she already knows every word he's about to say before he even opens his mouth. Hannah slumps in her seat at the lunch table, glaring so hard it could cut glass. Then she snaps that everyone in this room is staring at them like they're beneath everyone else. Outside the building, Golgan's booming voice slices through the air as he orders his team to just wait because he's about to make everyone finally see what real S-rank power looks like during combat training. Later that afternoon, a huge white tarp drops over a monstrous cage out on the grassy training grounds. Instructor Varian steps in front of the class and announces that today's exercise is going to unleash the captured magical beasts they've been holding. He tells the students, "You've got this, no problem," but he still makes them keep their guard up and stay. They stayed locked in because one slip, just 1 second, and they'd have to pay for it. Gulgan tore forward with the rest of the Crescent Claw. Claw Party snaps into action, yanks their weapons out and strikes a fierce pose, then they're instantly ready to show off. Varian slaps his hand onto the top, and then he smirks, "All right, now we're about to expose the enemies." He screams at them to start, right now, and then a pack of giant wolves explodes out of their cage, barreling straight at the students. A pack of forest wolves comes sprinting in, only to get crushed like easy bait for what's about to happen next. Hannah locks eyes with them, her serious gaze daring everyone to realize they're massively underestimating what she stares down the C-ranked beasts and snaps into action, hands already reaching for her next move, readying her staff. He thought it'd be a cakewalk, and he's plotting to bait every one of them with a taunt, letting Ben the heavy shielder lure them in first, so she can wipe out the whole group in one ruthless blast, frying them to a crisp with magic all at once. She snaps her black mage skill on and blasts a colossal fire arrow straight into the pack, right through the chaos. But Goljan suddenly lunges straight into the line of fire, screaming that he'll knock them out one by one. He keeps barreling forward with his sword held high, totally brushing off the massive spell she just unleashed. Hannah's face turns ice-cold pale as she desperately tries to shout, "Wait for me," but it's way past the point of saving it now. She yells at him like he's a complete idiot and screams for him to dodge. As the fire blast crashes straight into his position, Gulgan finally spots the brutal fire blast barreling toward him, too late, because he's already trapped right in the middle of it. The explosion erupts and blasts him away the moment the magic hits the ground, boom, swallowing him whole in a flash of noise and fire. Bursting out of the smoke, looking like Gulgan completely flips out. He blurts his shock in a full-throated yell, because he never saw that coming. "I can already tell they're about to roast me," and now he's hopping in place, screaming about how it burns, while the monsters just stand there and watch. Ben watches the chaos unfold from the sidelines, and it clicks. Galjan and Hannah are both scrambling to slam the exact same target, and that's when everything goes sideways, making the whole team looks like a disaster, completely out of sync and clueless on how to move as one. He can't get over it, and to make it worse, he's stuck wondering why Luarisha hasn't healed a single person yet. Hannah finally snaps, fed up with how nothing ever moves forward, progress, and decides that if everyone is moving this painfully slow, she might as well do it herself. So she starts clearing a massive patch of ground and charging a world-ending spell to finish. She pushes through the whole fight in one breath, standing her ground as her staff ignites with wild, overwhelming power. Hannah catches her opening, yells that the target is that group. Then she blasts a flame scatter shot the moment they're in range. But Ben lunges in the very same moment, slams his heavy shield down with a special skill, and lands a monster of a shield bash that can. Dirt and debris swirled away, and Hannah just stood there, smiling like she'd pulled off the biggest win of her life, until the smoke finally thins away, and then reveals two wolves barreled forward, straight through the wreckage of the failed attack. Hannah spots the pack strewn everywhere, and immediately starts firing off complaints at Ben about why he had to wipe them out. But the second she realizes she's standing there, her complaining cuts off fast. She's out there all by herself, with wolves snarling and growling right at her heels. She starts trembling and the awful truth hits her. Somehow, she's managed to pull an absolutely brutal amount of aggro from the monsters. And before she can even twitch, the wolves charge straight at her, jaws bared, teeth snapping for the kill. She just panics and freezes solid as they surge closer, whispering to herself that this is about to get horribly worse. And then bam, a blinding flash erupts across her face while Varian stands in the back, acting like he hasn't even noticed. The wolves get blasted backward by a sudden surge of force, and the whole attack grinds to a halt. Hannah just freezes in place, staring up in full-blown disbelief, thinking, how am I still in one piece? While Varian grips his staff with a huge grin, he looks totally unstoppable, completely relaxed. The instructor blasts out, "That's it, session S over," and everyone just freezes there, staring at the beasts they've brought down as Varian lets out a proud chuckle and tells them they absolutely crushed it out there. He looks genuinely thrilled. Then he pauses because something S coming. This kind of raw power is exactly what he'd expect from an S-ranked party. Then he starts talking about their magic and the way they wield it like a weapon. Using their skills is honestly mind-blowing. Then he abruptly stops and says, even though their power is incredible, their so-called teamwork is an absolute disaster. Every member of the party looks mortified, while he drones on with another lecture, explaining that it was a genius move to bait them in with that taunt, until the trouble started the moment. The crew didn't even waste time chatting or deciding who would hunt first. They just went straight into action. Varian keeps lecturing, and he's basically saying, the vanguard never once told the rearguard the plan, so the backup never got the chance to catch up and sink. He tells you that since Larisha was laser-focused on prepping support magic for Ben, she never even had a chance to react when everything suddenly went wrong. Staring across the battlefield, he realized that charging into a huge attack just to show off blew up their teamwork, and in a real fight, that kind of mistake would have been the end of them. It's obvious they're totally ignoring what their teammates are fighting to pull off. Varian grins as he finally reaches the real truth. He tells them the exact reason their coordination is so painfully bad, and it all clicks. And it's all because Gaius has been spoiling them the entire time. Now the whole party just stands there, stunned, as those words slam into there. And Hannah looks totally wrecked, realizing they just kicked out the one guy they were leaning on way more than they ever admitted. Varian doesn't let them mope for a second. He snaps at them to stop staring like spectators and get moving. He tells them to stop leaving the monster carcasses sprawled on the ground. He storms off and yells at them to clean the mess like, I already showed you how to do this in class. As the training exercise kicked off, they started whispering and cackling at the mess, like, man, just look at this. They'd barely seen one. Out of the packed crowd, one guy blurts out a statement, like he couldn't hold it in another second, as Crescent Moon's claws spiraled into a full-on disaster. And he admits he was secretly hoping I could learn something from them today. Then everything just went sideways, because now. Then he cracks a joke, saying that the entire display was the perfect lesson in what not to do. Then another person chimes in, saying the whole tale about the party stopping that monster rampage in town is a total fabrication too. They had someone else call out how pathetic it is that they booted their support, only to end up looking like this anyway. Hannah hears the insults, clenches her jaw, and declares she's not about to become a laughing stock. The party members slump in defeat and trudge off, while the crowd around them keeps yapping insults like it's laughing time. And when they finally come back, Goljan's still reeling in shock, grilling them like, are we sure you're really S-ranks? He snaps, demanding to know if they seriously can't do a single thing without a novice like Gaius hovering around. In a room packed to the brim with books and scrolls, Miria throws herself over her desk. Back at the training grounds, Varian glares at Hannah and calls it a total waste. He points out that she's firing off high-level fire arrows and area of effect spells without a single incantation. And Varian tells you straight up, even in the royal capital, there's no black mage who's mastered something like that at her age. He tells her you must have been so locked in on those spells that you totally missed the basics of adventuring, saying her balance is so off that it's not exactly something worth celebrating. He shoots back that talent means nothing if you can't swing it in a real fight, so she mutters under her breath that she hates old men who ramble on, and Varian just laughs it off, blurting out, sorry, I didn't mean to go on like that. But across town in Miria's cluttered room, she clamps her hands on her desk, staring into the darkness like she's ready to label one thing as truly unforgivable. Hannah's eyes sharpen as she repeats Varian's words, grilling him with one question, were they really spoiled by Gaius? Wondering whether the old instructor truly believes they're helpless without him. That evening, back at their lodgings, Larisha blurts out, Hannah, are you gonna be okay? Ben tells Larisha that she's been stuck in her room ever since they came back, and it makes Larisha's worry spike through the roof. Goljan just shrugs it off and cuts her off, saying she's not the type to completely fall apart over something like this. He took a sip of his drink, then couldn't stop thinking about just how insanely well Varian knew what she was doing. Down the hall, heavy footsteps thunder as Hannah mutters under her breath about some obnoxious old geezer variant. Just as if the world flips a switch, she kicks the door wide open and screams that everyone's already there. She's absolutely on fire. The crowd roars as he fires up, announcing it's officially time to review today's teamwork. Leaving, Larisha stepped into view and the guys just gasped at what they saw. With a shocking burst of energy that hit her out of nowhere, a booming, deep laugh ripped through the room, slicing right through the tension like a blade. As Varian looms in the doorway, he fires off a quick question. Are they reviewing their lessons? And the best part, he praises it as truly admirable. The whole group just stands there, frozen in place like they can't move. Dead silence hung in the air as he stared straight at the old man. Suddenly, bam, that brutal shock slams into everyone at once, and every single person erupts, screaming the professor's name. Varian just grins at them and shrugs, saying he couldn't walk away, no matter what. He tells them to back off and admits he came to check on them because he chose to, then plops down with tea and vows he'll clock every move to test their skills. Plus, he's not leaving anytime soon, because he plans to stay right there and bond with them. Turns out the training party completely bombed, pure disaster, and Hannah and the others are totally losing it, because their everyday routine with the demon instructor has officially kicked off. Gaius has zero clue what's going on back at his old place, so he's out in the woods with Maria, just chilling, while everything somehow is going to blow up. He's just standing there, totally fed up, like that sweet, cheesy conversation is so innocent it's painful. As night creeps in, the big question hits hard. Will these former friends' paths ever collide again? And now you've got to watch for the moment they finally reveal who the demon. The instructor, yeah, it really is. The story whips to a fancy room. Goljan stirs awake, throws himself a proud good morning, and starts the day with a grin. He kept chanting to himself, I'm Goljan, yeah, the boss. He's the boss of the S-ranked crew, Crescent Moon's Claw, and he jolts upright to stretch, smugly thinking, a top-rank adventurer can't drop a single inch, even before breakfast. He swears waking up early makes him better than everyone else, and then it all starts spilling into chaos because of that. Time to throw himself into the next step of his morning routine. Goljan shrugs it off and rockets back to bed, face-planting into the pillow and calling it his totally legendary S-rank snooze. He tells himself that a slow morning is a rare luxury, one he can only get by for so long before it's gone. No S-rank badass like him is gonna let anyone mess with his daily routine. Then bam, the door explodes open and Varian yells, "Good morning, everyone," cutting himself off mid-shout. He barked for them to wake up and screamed that they were all brats just to get them moving. Golgan and Hannah jerk upright in bed, eyes wide and totally wiped out, like they've just been ripped out of a dead sleep nightmare. Varian just keeps grinning and tells them, wake up early, because the early bird gets 3 gold. Telling them to snap out of it, splash some water on their faces, and get moving, because they've got a job to do before breakfast. Hannah blurted out a massive "you." John stared at the page, wondering what kind of job they could be doing. They stare at a heap of empty wooden crates and bundled supplies tied up tight, just waiting for them to take the next step. Varian just stands there, rocking a huge grin, and starts telling you the whole thing, shouting to everyone that it's officially time to clean up. The whole group looks utterly wiped out, and Larisha snaps, asking if they really have to start cleaning the second they wake up. Hannah's done playing nice, she's not having any of it. She looks absolutely furious and snaps, why do we even have to do something like this? Pointed straight at Varian and snapped, you don't get to storm in and boss us around like you own the place. She goes on a full rant, saying her day was meant to kick off with a nice hot cup of tea, and chores like cleaning should be left to whoever actually wants asterisk to do them. Varian just smirks and chuckles, right into her sarcastic attitude. She strolls off with that whole elegant life vibe, and it's like the words you just heard are still hanging in the air. Then crash, a brutal noise slams from the next room, and everything starts clattering and tumbling, right as it barrels into Gaius and Varian gets caught off guard. Hannah is right there in the doorway, staring like she's gone numb with fear. She stared into the void, dread creeping in, and she kept mumbling like the words were tied to her black tea. A total disaster zone, junk and trash piled everywhere, while some voice off-screen snaps, I can't find a thing. Varian starts blasting, good work only comes from a good life, but it doesn't land at all, especially for Galgan and the rest who are already struggling. They look utterly crushed when someone tells them that adventurers who live in a mess will never achieve a thing. Varian lifts a rag like it's evidence, and keeps drilling the group with one hard truth. The very first step is staying organized. If they can't even find their own gear, they're basically throwing away priceless treasure. Golgan is sweating buckets as he desperately tries to, digging through a crate of brutal, heavy swords, eyes screaming, I'm at my limit, with every second. Ben just freezes, staring at this random crowned skull, while Larisha scrambles to. A whole mountain of potions towering in front of him. Hannah finally loses it, screaming at the top of her lungs, and flinging her hands up like she's about to explode. Right in. Junk whirls through the air, flying everywhere around her. Ben looks utterly broken, and mutters that there's just no light at the end of the tunnel, while the rest. Right now, the rest of the party is sprawled out, completely knocked out. Larisha stands there in total shock, staring at the floor as she blurts, Gaius, did you really carry and handle all this equipment by yourself? Varian keeps the class rolling, hammering home that staying clean and organized isn't, someday, it's a daily grind, but he's not a total monster, so he tells them, you don't have to knock it all out at once. He says, that's enough for today, and pushes them to finally sit down and tear into breakfast. As they dig in, it finally clicks for Gulgan, and he blurts to the girls, wait, I really just ditched everything and left Gaius to deal with it all. But someone at the table snorts and says Gaius was just doing all that on his own. They press on, yelling that none of them should ever feel grateful for what he did. Gulgan stares down at his plate for a beat of silence, then his mind drifts back to his old teammate. He just freezes there, staring into nothing, wondering what kind of life Gaius is living at this very moment. Meanwhile, Gaius is just strolling through a crowded town square when, out of nowhere, someone yells his name. And she's buzzing to finally watch those legendary item master techniques in action. Myria's buzzing with rage as she squares up to Gaius and blurts that she's going to. Tracking his every move, he can only manage a shaky little laugh, like he's about to crack. As they head out, Miria drops the truth. She's hunting a specific dungeon she's desperate to conquer, and that's exactly why she pushed for Gaius in her party. Gaius realizes that back when Crescent Moon's claw saved them both, he must have left a massive mark on her. But Miria's voice turns sharp. She tells him that even back then, she'd had a bad ing. A nasty gut feeling crawled up his spine about how his old party was treating him. Gaius is totally caught off guard, and it makes Miria stumble, second-guessing herself as she asks if she's being weak. But she won't let it go. She keeps saying setting up camp is a whole group job, not something one guy should carry alone. She rattles off every single thing he's been doing, how he's tending the fire, cooking like a pro, even keeping the mounts running, and somehow handling it all by himself. Gaius pauses for a beat, then finally admits it. Yeah, now that she brings it up, he really did handle everything by himself. He rubs the back of his head and admits, I didn't have much power in a fight, so I figured I'd at least handle the chores. But Miria refuses to back down, screaming that landing damage isn't the only thing a real fight is about. Miria starts firing off the whole play-by-play, everything he pulled in the fight, the clutch item support, how he shattered enemy spells, and even naming every combo like it was pure chaos mastery. And she tells him, no sugarcoating, that his support was shockingly perfect. Gaius just stood there, soaking it all in. As Miria stares down, her voice cracks with real heartbreak as she blurts out, I swear I can't wrap my head around how someone like him could have gotten fired. A long, heavy silence hangs between them as they tread along the stone path, and in the end, Gaius just shrugs it off like it's nothing. He lets out a little laugh and jokes that maybe he was just in the way, because apparently the rest of the team was busy hooking up. But Miria just freezes, staring at him with pure, stunned disbelief, that he can stay so chill about it. She snaps, asking if he's seriously like this right now, and Gaius immediately starts to wonder if his own perspective is actually that bizarre. Miria says nothing, she just stares at him, worry etched on her face like she's staring at something she's never seen before. She thought, Gaius is totally weird in his own way, like there's something just off, almost like a. As she watches him stride down the street, it hits her. This guy stopped trusting people ages ago. The two of them dash to a nearby buyback shop named Kirov, where he's hunched over the counter, slammed with work, until he finally clocks someone walking in, and he shoots them a laid-back welcome like it's no big deal. He cranes his neck, lights up the second he sees her, blurts that it's been ages since he last saw Miria, and then asks if she finally tracked down a new teammate. Miria flashes him a huge grin and says, that's right. Then she points to the hooded guy and introduces him as her senior, here to help her wipe out the dungeon. Gaius goes stone still in his disguise, silently scanning the shelves, eyeing every potion jar like it might explode his whole plan. But the shop owner snaps his work to a halt, and stares the hooded guy down for one long, tense second. That old man finally snaps and speaks up to get his attention. Gaius looks like he's moments away from bursting right out of his skin. When the clerk locks eyes with him and asks, straight to his face, if he's actually a bigot under that hood, the entire room freezes into dead silence as they just lock eyes and stare at each other. So Gaius finally snaps, rips off his invisible mask, and demands to know how the guy figured it out in the first place. The secret's out, and Gaius is rocking a distortion hood that scrambles how everyone sees him. But the shopkeeper, not fooled for a second, Gaius fiddles with his collar and calmly admits the old man's still razor-sharp. The clerk jabs a finger at him and blurts out that the only reason he got it because Gaius was freakishly good at picking the right items. And he tells the guy to hold his head high because there's no way he didn't. Absolutely no way. He refused to quit his old party just because one mistake blew up. The old guy snickers at him for abandoning Miria while he's busy staring at the gear, and Miria instantly turns bright red. He tells them they've got to stop wandering off solo and actually talk and shop as a team, and that hits Gaius like a surprise punch. So Gaius slams the brakes on what he's doing and apologizes to Myraya, while the clerk just stands there, grinning like he's watching a show. Gia pulls her in and demands to know if this exact kind of ether is the right pick for a magic. The magic swordsman's mono recovery, where power snaps back and everything changes in a heartbeat. Miria's face lit up with real joy. She broke into a huge grin, looked at him and said, "It's perfect." Once they're finished, they slam a massive mountain of supplies onto the shop counter. Gaius leans over the counter and fires off a question to the shopkeeper. What's the price for the entire stack of gear? The clerk starts rummaging through bottles, and with a smug grin he says Gaius definitely has a real eye for the top-shelf stuff, exactly the kind veterans crave. He starts tallying everything up, tearing through his high potions, ethers, antidotes, and scrolls, until he stops mid-G. Gaius clenches his teeth and waits for the damage to land, while the old man rips into him, saying the whole thing it's going to drain him of 6 hardened gold coins. Gaius stares at the items, mutters that the price is way more than he can swallow, then he flashes this sharp, clever look, like he's just figured everything out, and the plain truth suddenly feels obvious. Plotting to squeeze out a better deal by haggling his way in, he spills how the whole town's been drowned in rookies flooding in like crazy, adventurers who are barely even ready. Lately he's been making bold moves, then when he snaps at the clerk over his business mess, you can practically see him fighting to lug his veteran gear around while he tries to adjust to the new crowd. Gaius snaps at the old man to keep a heart, and knocks the price down, giving him a real break, telling him that since he's grabbing all that dead stock in one huge sweep, he'd better score himself a solid discount. Gaius claps his hands together and snaps into his. He shot the shopkeeper the most pleading face ever, begging for even a tiny discount. But it's not just some ordinary one, this is the real deal. He fires off his special item, master skill, called negotiation, and seals the deal like a pro. The pressure slams into the shopkeeper, making sweat pour off him as he stares like he's trapped in a cruel mental cage. The guy finally snaps, hands clamped to his head, as he screams for Gaius to stop that insane skill on him. He throws in the towel and promises he'll give the discount if Gaius just stops, while Miria stands there, watching every second unfold. Once the deal snapped into place, the gold coins hit the counter, right beside all the creative supplies. But when they start packing up, the clerk leans in and says the Crescent Moon claws have been struggling ever since Gaius walked out. That hits Gaius like a jolt, and he whips around on the spot, demanding to know if something really happened to his old party. The shopkeeper stares at him like he's lost in his own world and blurts, "How the heck haven't you heard the news yet?" As he walked away, Gaius just froze there, totally stunned, no clue what kind of disaster his old team had stumbled into. The shopkeeper scoots closer and grills Gaius. Did he really ditch every single thing he was running for the whole group? Gaius eyed the gear barrels and shrugged it off like, "This doesn't matter. Half of this stuff was the party's to begin with." He says they've got just the basics for camping laid out. Camping supplies, plus a handful of rare drops that are a pain to handle. But since they're not rookies, he's sure they can handle the inventory with ease. He storms out, leaving the shopkeeper gaping, while Miria watches with alarm, like she knows he's being way too naive and it's stressing her out. As Miria scrambles to explain what's going on, the shopkeeper bursts into wild laughter, and then the scene turns again then the guy finally snaps and spills everything. Gaius is moments away from the real truth about his old squad. Turns out the Crescent Moon's claw has been a total wreck ever since they tossed him out of the party. And now, after that total disaster of a training session, their name in town is in total ruins, made into the laughingstock of every beginner. Gaius just freezes, eyes bulging, utterly stunned at how fast everything spiraled downhill the second he wasn't in it. Miria just stands there, ear glued to the news, and she can't even believe how ridiculous the whole thing is. Gaius's panic snaps to life, because no S-rank party is supposed to be this chaotic, especially since they smiled like the handover would go perfectly, but now he's seeing the truth, that they might have just set him up for disaster. Kicked him out with zero plan, and the shopkeeper tells him to stop stressing his reputation because everyone in town already knows the truth, straight up, and his old squad is getting absolutely crushed for it right this second. He leans in and tells everyone the truth. Master Varian actually went to the guild himself to teach the party face-to-face and guide them personally, and Gaius stares like he's just seen a ghost. He knows all too well how brutal Varian's training sessions can get. He bursts into a deafening scream that cuts through the air and carries all the way from outside the shop, completely losing it over the news. Meanwhile, Varian just kicks back, laughing to himself like he's got a secret nobody else knows. Himself, grinning like he's having the best time while. By the time the gear and potion boxes finally get shoved into place, the whole day's gone, but now everything's lining up perfectly. Varian leans in and tells everyone, combat training kicks off tomorrow, so get some real sleep. But first he makes them sit up and refill their energy. While he hums, he pitches a drinking party as a welcome bash, double the fun, even if the idea still has to deal with this looming problem. Even though the table is jam-packed with random bottles and just plain bread. Larisha and Ben burst back from their supply run buzzing with excitement, but Hannah he just glares at the bottle and rips into it, like, this is ridiculous. It's just cheap booze, pure and simple. Now that they're an S-rank party, there's no way she should be downing that kind of stuff anymore. Larisha snaps, we're broke, after they blew all that money on that item pouch and the payments for. They've barely got a clue, plus they can't even touch S-rank quests yet, so they're stuck trying to make it back with nothing to show for it. Goljan slumps with a defeated sigh, and admits they'll be living on a tight budget for a while. Hannah stares at her drink for a long, tense moment, like it's about to tell her the future, wondering if this cheap stuff the C-rankers down just to get wasted is even gonna hit right. Suit her taste, then she starts rattling off every ounce of stress, every hit of exhaustion, and the brutal humiliation of being trapped in a beginner's course with an old guy suddenly decides to chug the whole thing just to deal with it all. With all that anxiety battering her chest, she halts for a heartbeat, lets the flavor hit, and someone bursts out a toast to another day of pushing through sheer willpower. The whole crew slams their mugs together and whoops like they just crushed the hardest grind imaginable. The effort they poured into it. Galjan's jaw drops, and he practically buzzes with excitement as he tells Professor Varian that old man could down drinks like it was nothing. He had Varian laughing hard, swearing he wasn't about to let a bunch of kids outdrink him just yet. Varian takes a huge drink, savoring the way that alcohol finally hits better after a brutal day of cleaning. He told himself once the kids got a little tipsy, he'd flip the switch, turn charming and start being nice just to win them over. He slips into the suite, old man act, and tells everyone, yeah, if Gaius messed up, that's it. He's still just a young guy with all the time in the world to grow. And the whole party bursts into laughter, tossing jokes around like, seriously, Gaius being such a mess. Somehow that makes him kinda cute. Variant's eyes snap sharp for just a split second, and he decides, right now, he's gonna pull the real truth out of them before the booze fades. He shuts down the casual talk for a beat and demands answers, what really happened, and why they decided to kick Gaius out for real, sending a mug crashing down on the table. As the whole vibe of the conversation flips, and you can feel everything changing, Golgan just smirks like he's drunk with pure smugness, and tells him the guy was honestly just getting in their way. Varian just sits there with his usual grin, soaking it all in as he pipes up to agree, basically saying, come on, Gaius is a rookie item master, so he was never truly on our level to start with. Golgan was already feeling the alcohol hit, slumped back with Hannah, and grumbling that one guy had been living with two couples like it was no big deal, which Hannah follows up by flinging her arms up in the air and screaming, shouting that Gaius was nothing but a total roadblock. Larisha scoots in close to Ben, cheeks blazing, and admits that even when they were out camping, everything still felt painfully awkward admitting that worry never left her, even for a second. Gaius looked like he might be hanging around, eavesdropping on every word they said, and it just drove her crazy, because it made her feel uneasy non-stop. Varian flashes a friendly grin to everyone, but inside he's thinking, we need more info, so I'll press until they finally spill. So he casually fires off, then what jobs did you two end up handing Gaius, since he's so useless? Hannah fires off his chores one by one, her voice rising as she demands everything from caring for the mounts, and setting up camp to grabbing items, mixing potions, running errands, and even scrubbing the place clean. And after all that, wrestling through the laundry, he finally snapped and yelled that he'd even have to deal with disposing of the magic beast. Hannah kept yelling, snapping that Gaius was painfully slow on the job, and that he should have just handled it all himself. When he finally gets time to take things apart, Goljan rockets back in red-faced, screaming that the guy was always in the way and never once cared about the rest of them. He won't stop, yelling that if Gaius had been hoarding that many items all along, he could have at least spoken up. And right then, Larisha jumps in from the side, blushing hard as she calls Gaius a total. That total closet pervert. The entire group crowds around Varian, swearing that without them, the party never would have clawed its way to S-rank. Then they point at his beginner class like it's the weight dragging everyone down, and they keep on. I kept screaming that he should have just done his job the right way, like every normal item master does. Varian just sits there with a calm smirk as the party around him erupts in laughter and drinks keeps flowing. But as he keeps listening, it finally clicks. These guys might truly be hopeless after all. His face stays polite, but inside, something seethes. He's already locked in his plan. He's gonna knock some serious sense into them. That lands us on a quick heads up. Even Master Barian is absolutely raging at how you're all acting. Then the narrator drops the truth. The Crescent Moon Claws are in for savage training, because the master is waiting and it's about to get brutal. So for now, just give them a little shrug and a click of the tongue. Let them enjoy their final taste of peace. Empty wine bottles and mugs crash into the scene, littering the tavern table as Gulgan leaned in close, shouted Mr. Balian, and demanded to know if the old man was even listening to the story at all. As the drinks make his face burn redder, he leans toward the instructor and blurts that he might be dead wrong about how much they can really do. He won't shut up, bragging like crazy about how hard they've been grinding lately. And suddenly, the whole story yanks them into a brutal flashback of their massive death match with the terrifying Red Cyclops, claiming they were the very first to conquer the skies. No one ever thought A-Rank could pull off a win against a monster like that back then. Memories hit him again and again, as he recounts the time they wiped out a whole nest of hobgoblins. They always jumped straight into the gross, filthy assignments nobody else dared touch. Gulgan won't shut up about their old victories, yelling that they crushed the basilisk lord of the abyssal cave. And they absolutely smashed the venom dungeon. He's bragging that they're not just brute muscle, they've got brains to back it up. And then, Luorisha and Ben straight up agree with him, and they're cheering so loud they start yelling, an S-rank for a reason. And then it just keeps. And Gulgan starts going even further. The drinks slam into him, and suddenly he's screaming even louder, pounding the table like, their teamwork, that's the real deal. And then he whips around and demands backup from Gaius for the story, only to glance over his shoulder, but he just glares at the empty spot where his old teammate used to stand. Hannah clocked that something was off about him, shot him a worried look, and asked if he'd had one drink too many, while Ben just shrugs and laughs from the back, telling the group there's zero chance Gaius would ever show up here. Gulgan rips out a strained. He bursts out laughing, tells everyone it was just a joke, and desperately tries to mask how painfully awkward he feels. He grabs another huge drink from his mug, and the question hits him hard. Why in the world does it feel like Gaius is still right there with them? Gaius starts replaying everything in his head, and then it smacks him. Maybe the past isn't matching what he remembers, because back when he was always right in the middle of the chaos, right where everything exploded. Chaos erupts as he charges straight into goblins and monsters, without backing down. The team finally snapped into it. His support wasn't just helpful, it was the hidden key behind every single win they'd ever pulled off. Back at the table, Hannah's getting a little tipsy, and she straight up admits that Gaius really went all in. So much brutal work, and then Ben jumps in, yelling that it's insane how a beginner-class guy can keep pace with them, while Lyricious starts to wonder if it went any deeper than that, Gulgan would have looked even more wrecked. He's totally stressed, muttering like something S about to snap as he trails off with how Gaius probably pulled off miracles for them more than once. Then boom, a hand slams onto the table, and drinks go flying everywhere in an instant. Gulgan completely snaps and erupts in a screaming rage at everyone. Stop whining, look, the guy they kicked out of the face is turning bright red. He claims they're ruining the booze with all this talk, so he storms in and starts screaming at his teammates, leaving the scene mid-liftoff. Luorisha and Ben were totally shell-shocked, while Hannah just rolled her eyes in annoyance, and Varian watched the whole thing crumble in real time. Gulgan stands there, fully flustered and blushing, choking on every word, just barely getting out. He suddenly yells that he's checking the Draconics, then bolts out the door, leaving everyone else standing there. I left you behind for good, while me. Almeria glares at him, face twisted in pure irritation, and demands to know what the heck his problem even is. Varian just smirks and tells her, wait, Gulgan was the first one to say Gaius's name. Outside, the moon blazes high above the clouds, while the night holds its breath for one quiet second. Gulgan stumbles through the grass, groaning under his breath like he knows he drank way too much. But he masks it like it's nothing, swearing he's still got it under control. Yanking himself forward, stressing he wasn't being responsible enough to check the mounts. He keeps patting himself on the back, smugly thinking, yeah, I'm such a considerate guy for doing all this. While he starts picturing what Gaius would say about him, even blurting out loud, do you agree, Gaius? This snaps me back to the old days. Gaius, staring out over everything like he could read the future. He threw a glance over his shoulder and demanded, Gulgan, what's going on? Gaius and Gulgan are back in the stables with their mounts, and the whole memory is blazing, like it's about to explode, as Gulgan screams that they're all about to get destroyed They charged into the tavern to celebrate the moment he finally landed an S-rank. But Gaius cuts him off and orders him to run on ahead, right now, and he'll hustle after them and catch up later. Gulgan tries to reel him in, insisting the Draconics can wait just this once, though. So Gaius refused to move, insisting he'd feel wrong if he skipped his routine right then, because he truly believes that if you want great work, you've got to build a good life first. And he drives that point home, reminding Gulgan vowed to never skip the basics of the job. Gulgan storms off, calling him way too preachy, while Gaius warns him, don't you stay out too late. In the present, Gulgan stands alone in the dark, cheeks burning as he relives the memory. And finally it hits him. He admits to himself that the booze hits him hard, and you can practically see it in his eyes. That booze is messing with Gold's head something fierce. Gulgan's head, and honestly, it's like Gaius is standing right there. Still rocking that same worn-out hood, he looked as unshakably calm as ever. Gulgan locks eyes on the empty space, and the memory hits. Gaius used to be out here every time, tending to the draconics like it was his job. He relives every dull everyday chore every adventurer is forced to swallow. And how he just grinned through it all, quietly taking on everyone else's share of the work. No, I can't. No, I won't. Even when it felt like it was too much. Complaining once, the weight of it all finally crashes down on him, and you can see him on the verge of shattering. He drops his head into his old friend's shadow, murmuring a heartfelt thank you, and choking out an apology for everything he's done. Standing there in the dead of night, guilt just keeps flooding out of him. He realizes these are the words he should have said when he was sober, not the way he's been dragging it out until now. But the sight of Gaius stays eerily silent, and Galgan is left alone in the dark, trapped with his thoughts. Turns out it wasn't some illusion. He really showed up as a Gaius because panic was eating him alive, and he rushed in to check on everyone. Seeing Galgan like this totally rattles him. Galgan just mutters to himself. I'm standing there totally stunned like, wait, what's even happening right now? And Gaius's jaw drops. He can't believe a word he just heard. He never thought he'd live to hear Gulgan spit out, thank you, or I'm sorry. It's dead silence snaps between them for 1/10 second. Galgan just stands there, eyes locked, staring. Gaius tracked him from beneath his hood, eyes burning as he watched. And Galgan is so wasted, he's convinced the image is gay. The Gaius standing there in front of him. It's just a hallucination. No matter what he does, it won't disappear. He stares straight at his old friend and tells himself, yeah, I'm still drunk. Totally not noticing that he's really here because he keeps snapping at himself. No way, Gaius should be standing right here right now. So he stares at the floor, trying to shake the hallucination out of his head, and keeps snapping. It can't be true. Gaius would never come back, over and over, like denial might stop it. After everything that went down, he heads to the party, while Gaius just stands there, listening to him. As the wind whips through the trees under a sky full of stars, it sweeps the world quiet, until it's just the two of them, alone in the night. Gulgan bursts into uncontrollable shivers, and still can't stop ranting about how brutally freezing it is out here. He's basically wiped out for the night, pacing like, do I bail and head back, or keep pounding drinks? Drinking, he stomps away. Gay stands alone beneath the starlit sky, just staring off into the night like he's waiting for something to happen. Gazing up at the night sky, then everything changes. Someone surges in out of nowhere, and slams a sword against his throat, freezing him completely before he can even react. He barely has time to breathe before that person snaps, intruder, and accuses him of sneaking around at night. Gia starts sweating in panic, but he instantly recognizes it's the voice, and it hits the guy like, man, it's been way too long. Turns out that man is Varian, and Gaius snaps, master, like he's bowing to power. Then Varian smirks at Gaius and tells him that he was itching to have a talk with him, too. Gaius finds himself trapped between Myria and his old instructor. Then it hits him. He just walks straight into a real nightmare. Total awkward nightmare. He's flooding with cold sweat, clearly terrified about what's coming next. Gaia just stands there looking painfully tense, while the night drags on, and everything starts to heat up fast, fueled by whispers of undead monsters slinking through the darkness, creeping closer and closer. Under the stable roof, Varian and Gaius square off, eye to eye. Varian bursts into laughter, tells Gaius to chill, and says he doesn't need. Don't be so stiff. He studies his old student up close, like he's finally seeing him for real, and says it looks like he's actually doing pretty great for himself. Varian grins, already picturing how youth is basically this: meet your people, make the memories, and then eventually move on from friends your own age, and he says it like that. Looks like Gaius has been glued to someone pretty intense for way too long. Like, tell me what's going on. A strong-willed crew's been taking over lately. Gaius looks back on his days with Crescent Claw, and admits it's all real. Then he rushes out an apology for every bit of chaos they've unleashed. Varian speeds straight to the point, saying he knows why Gay showed up, because something massive is weighing on his mind. Gia goes silent for a beat, eyes dropping to the ground as if she's weighing what to do next. Varian blurts that he's heard every detail about the party's guild training chaos, and the full scene they sparked back in town, and it all tumbles into the next moment, which leads to. So it pushes Gaius to fire off the question, Are you talking about the time the Draconics went on a full rampage? Turns out, if riders ignore a Draconix or treat it like trash, they're inviting real danger. Big trouble can hit fast. Even if they look calm on the surface, once a magical beast like that snaps into chaos. But that rampage, that's just the match, because the real horror is way worse, and it's about to blow everything up. And it gets even worse, because the scent of a panicked Draconix yanks people in so fast it's almost impossible to resist. Nightmarish, higher-level monsters came flooding in from every corner of the world. And in the absolute worst case, that awful scent can drag a dragon straight down onto the town. Varian lets out a chuckle and tells them, "Look, the store owner made things rough, but at least the party was doing the bare. Just enough to keep the animals calm. Looks like everyone dodged the full-blown nightmare after all. This time it's a brand new scenario, so buckle up." Gaius just glares at his hand on the table, bracing himself for the absolute bare minimum he knows they'll throw at him. Gaius stands there, shovel resting on his shoulder, ready to kick off whatever comes next. He slams the blade into the dirt and carves out the space in front of him. While he works, he keeps his mind racing, scrubbing out the grime-filled straw and testing what every animal craves most. But no matter how hard he grinds, it still feels like he's only scratched the surface, and there's a whole mountain of improvement waiting for him. Varian bursts into laughter and says he can't believe the rest of and the party basically dumped all this work on Gaius to do by himself. So Gaius straight up admits it's mostly because he's fully given up on trusting them to carry anything. Varian pauses and stares at him working for a beat, eyes sharpening like he's figuring something out. He says the whole ordeal hits him like those ancient subjugation battles from back in the... He reminds him that years ago, Gaius would always barge into everyone else's business and act like he owned the place. And Gaius just shrugs it off with a laugh, remembering exactly how his master... Then I'm telling you, she tore into him with the sharpest tongue lashing, and he couldn't escape it. Varian's ghostly voice from the past booms into the air, warning Gaius, never, ever step into someone else's person's territory. He tells you nobody ever truly masters their own craft, so you've got to keep chasing it, always reaching higher, above. And through it all, you've got to show respect to everyone around you, no exceptions. In the present, Varian suddenly clocks it. Gaius didn't just hear those old teachings, he actually swallowed them whole. So Gaius shoots a glance away, and finally admits they should have teamed up on the basics. Cooking, cleaning, the whole start-to-finish deal. He flashes a small smile, and admits he only did it all because his master taught him that's exactly what he was supposed to do. And even though it wasn't that big of a deal, he still acted like the rest of the party should have been able to take care of it by themselves. Honestly, it's so obvious there's no point even getting into it. He ends by warning that you should never bet on things working out just because you assumed they would, because it leaves. Gaius stood alone under the full moon, staring into the night like, maybe it's time I change my ways too. Varian tells Gaius to quit stressing over everything and basically admits Gaius should have fought harder against his old teammates, but he swears he'll personally whip the crescent moon claws back into shape. Gaius just chuckles nervously, already picturing the savage training that's about to come for his poor old. And that's when it hits him. His own master is the commander running the Royal Knights, logistics support, which is honestly wild. He leans in and tells Varian, just take the credit for everything that went down, and warns that if anyone finds out he was pulling the strings behind it all, everything will spiral into chaos fast. Varian turns and starts walking off, laughing that young people and their messy problems are a total mystery. He hurls one last offer at Gaius and tells him, I've got a job waiting for you at the royal palace. He nods, then stares past everything, eyes locked on something way out in the distance. Miria quietly watches the two of them talk, soaking it all in. A quiet smile curled across her face. Gaius snaps his gaze back and tells them he's got a promise he can't break, someone's first. And then once he's finally alone, he'll deal with the job. Varian just nods, like he's fully getting it. Then way later under blazing full moon, a voice cuts through the night, calling out for the master. Varian stands in the doorway, scratching the back of his head, and tells whoever's there, I'm out, handle the rest of this mess yourselves. He glances at the Moonlight Claw members sprawled out cold across the floor, then lets out a tired sigh, like, honestly, young people make everything so complicated. Next morning hits the mansion like a drumbeat, and it gulps air, ready to explode. And Golgan lies flat on his back, gasping like he can barely survive the first moments of the day. He's supposed to be the legendary leader of the S-ranked party Crescent Moon's Claw, but right now, he's a complete wreck. Varian struts off, laughing, and claims Golgan's misery is nothing but a legit S-rank hangover. Golgan is fighting for his pride, trying to convince himself that someone legendary and S-rank like him can't possibly be getting crushed by a nasty hangover. And just as he can barely stay awake, Varian barges into the doorway, waves like he owns the place and screams at everyone to wake up, right now. Varian grins wide as he announces it's official. Morning cleaning starts right now. Hannah can't believe they're forced to do this again today, while Larisha just rubs her eyes, mumbling that she's way too sleepy for all of it. Varian shrugs it off and snaps that they shouldn't get cocky just because they managed to keep things together for one whole day. He strides past the empty bottles on the floor, shooting them a warning, keep partying like this, and someone's going to yank the rug right out from under you. As Ben and the crew start bagging up the trash, Varian cuts in and reminds them there are no days off when it's everyday life. He jabs a finger at the door and orders Ben and Hannah to haul the work outside. So they all head to the stables, and Varian storms in, ready to drill the basics of Draconic's care into everyone's brains. The lesson kicks off with a burst of growth. Varian breaks it down in brutal detail. If that beast gets sick from the wrong food, its urine will straight up expose it. Varian keeps the lesson rolling, warning them that if they don't stay on top of everything, the stink of waste and body odor is going to take over. Brace yourself, this load of stuff is about to get really, really nasty. Myria shoots a glare at Gaius from the stables, clearly disgusted by the stench, and demands, "Tell me, do you honestly not smell that?" Gaius keeps repeating the word like it's brand new to him, while Myria shrugs and admits she only assumed it's how things were supposed to smell. He starts to wonder if everyone's just playing sick or hiding something, because he hasn't caught a single weird thing. But Varian steps straight into his space with a hard stare, then fires off a serious line about how his observation skills. Lately his skills are slipping fast. He points at the draconics pennied up in the stall, firing off a warning. Underestimate how much care these creatures demand, and you'll pay for it, hard. As the mood turned heavy, Varian decided it was finally time to lay out one specific story for them. A chilling cautionary tale that screams, if you ignore your basic duties, a dark future is waiting right around the corner. He bursts into a wild rant about tragedy and disaster, slams them with the truth that they've got to own their work, right now, before everything spirals south, and it leaves. Gaius and Myria stood there in crushing silence, their faces screaming stress as the old man tore into them with an endless, intense lecture. Hannah just stands there, watching as Gulgan wrestles with the farm equipment, complaining that this feels exactly like real, brutal hard labor. Varian won't back down. He keeps pressing them, reminding everyone that Gaius used to do every single bit of the solo. He tells them, no sugarcoating, that they booted him out, so now they'd better step up and own the mess. Soon, a humble bowl of soup and a hunk of bread slams onto the table, but then everything goes sideways. But with back-breaking work crushing them and a brutal hangover pounding their skulls, neither of them even feels like eating. They just sit there, staring at their food in silence, feeling absolutely nothing but frustration and regret crash over him, and Gulgan just stares, half in a daze. His head is a total storm of twisted feelings, and his body finally gives out, leaving Hannah right where she stands, because both of them are stuck thinking the same awful thought about what they're facing, and even though misery is all they have in common, it still won't let them actually save. He blurts the words out loud, and Gulgan just lets out a heavy sigh. Sure, he's rusty, but that S-rank pride in his bones refuses to let him admit he's actually still an S-rank. He's losing control, and he can't handle this anymore. Back at the table, Gulgan stared up at the ceiling, big and helpless, wishing Gaius was still there to take the reins for them. Hannah and Ben just slump there, looking totally shattered, like their pride is literally beginning to crumble, and on this day, ego implodes like thunder, and that shattering roar echoes through the whole building while. Back at the campsite, Gaius roars that it's time to move, whether the world heard that pride crack or not. He tells Myria, we finally gathered everything we need, now. And now Myria's mount has finally teamed up with them. Those two Draconics are itching to hit the road. Gaius stares down the road ahead and declares that it's finally time to move. He shouts that they should smash the camp apart right now, so they can finally start. Charging straight toward the dungeon, he rockets into motion, quick enough to feel like he's in 3 places at once, snatching up everything while Myria just stands there, completely stunned. She watches him grind through the work like a cold, unstoppable machine. He's making the entire process look way too effortless. Myria stands there with a massive pout, looking so mad it's almost funny, like she's about to explode because of. Gaius gripped every bag with his own 2 hands, so she shrieked his name at the top of her lungs to yank his attention, and he shoots her a glance, clearly on edge, because whatever she's about to say next could hit hard. She locks eyes with him, drops her voice to serious mode, and tells him straight up that doing it that way is it's just not going to work. Then she flashes him this massive grin, and tells him they should do it together, which utterly catches Gaius off guard, because she scoots in close and asks if he's on board, leaving him standing there like, wait, what? It had him blushing and grinning like an idiot, and he stammered out, "Yes. Near the mountains, it's obvious. Just hanging around won't cut it if you want your feelings to land. Nope, just waiting around won't cut it if you want them to actually understand you." So Miria finally steels herself and makes the big move. She goes for it and starts to. She makes her move and Gaius takes the offer instantly. No second thoughts, no hesitation. Gaius and Miria set off side by side, and for the first time, it looks like real trust is finally taking root. They push deeper into the forest, ready to kick off their training game. Gaius snaps, "We have no idea how the other one actually fights," and tells them to swing by some hunting grounds and see what they can pull off. Miria is. She's totally in like, she's been dying to show him what she can do, but Gaius suddenly looks awkward and tells her, "Just stay locked on my lid during the fight." For a split second, he snaps into seriousness and tells her she has to do exactly what he says. No questions, no exceptions. She's normally free to call the shots on the fly. She just needs to spell it out clearly. The moment she hears his voice, she has to snap to attention, because the second he locks eyes with, and he tells her he needs a promise from her, then she just smiles like she already knows. Miria flashes him a huge grin and says, "Of course, I'll listen," and she swears it's only because she trusts Gaius. Miria thanks him for the chance and Gaius snaps, "All right, let's go," pushing her toward the exit. Gaius charged ahead on his mount, racing through the trees like the forest couldn't keep up. He glances back and tells Miria she's killing it, and she's right on pace. Miria bursts into laughter and warns him not to ever underestimate her skills. She grins like she owns the whole forest, sprinting through the trees like it's pure freedom, until they finally spot a dark, rocky cave entrance tucked deep in the woods. Gaius snaps right back into seriousness and warns her, "Don't drop your guard for even a second," telling them to keep talking so they stay perfectly in sync as they close in, and Miria immediately agrees. Gaius and Miria slam their mount into the dark cave, charging straight ahead into the night's grip as the tunnel swallows them whole. He pushed deeper into the shadows as the forest light dimmed to nothing. The rocky entrance stays dead silent between the trees. Then, all at once, the two blazing white eyes flicker to life in the pitch-black void. But back in the woods, those towering shadow monsters burst up from the ground like they own the earth. A creepy shadow starts dragging itself back down into the dirt with this unsettling, weird scrape. It vanishes for good, and suddenly only one creature is left standing there, while it watches the clearing from the heart of the forest, completely alone. As he heads into town, the streets feel calm and easy. Everything looks normal, almost too chill. They close in on this fancy balcony, like someone up there has been watching the whole time. On that fancy balcony again, a lone silhouette looms by the window, eyes fixed, silently watching as the long-haired man raises his cup, takes a sip of tea and shoots. "So, what's going on?" He sinks back into his chair, looking so calm it's almost scary, as he listens to the report like it's nothing. He kept nodding like he totally understood, especially when they brought up those dungeons with the special variants. That weird shadow monster is standing right there in the room with him, watching his every move. And he lets out a smug chuckle, telling the creature it's actually pulled off something seriously impressive. He rises to his feet, stares out the window, and announces he wants to push their power just one step further. He's out for a walk, and you can tell he's already toying with the idea of making that dungeon harder while he's gone. He tells the shadow monster it's dismissed, and the thing begins sinking into the floor, vanishing right after barking his final command, "Make sure I hear every single thing as it happens." A mysterious man just stands there, wearing a dark, chilling smile like he knows exactly what's coming. Gaius has grown up so fast, and now he looks downright irresistible, and the thought hits me like a punch. He's starting to realize that everything Gaius hauled out into the world wasn't just random, it was a huge deal. But he's dead serious. Gaius has to remember, bolting now is straight up off the table. His eyes blaze as he leans in and declares she's coming for him for real, so he'd better stand there and wait. He drags his fingertips over his face and gushes, calling Gaius his precious little favorite. That calm little town won't stop. Everywhere, the voice keeps bouncing off the silence, screaming Gaius' name again and again, drifting right over the locals' roof, where everything's a total disaster. Inside, Golgan and his crew are sprawled face down on the table, totally wrecked. Varian just lets out a laugh at them and snaps, "Get up, today's the day we're heading out." Varian flashed a massive grin and told the whole crew it was finally time to unleash every ounce of that buried power. But Gaius and Miria just slump at the table, eyes glazed like they haven't slept in days. Outside the building, a loud announcement blares that combat training is officially kicking off. And Ben's already got his gear on, practically buzzing with excitement, like there's no way he should be this hyped. He keeps telling himself, "No way, I'm not letting Gaius steal the spotlight and vanish into the background." While Golgan stands there, staring daggers, fully locked in on one goal, proving they still deserve that S rank. They're right on their heels, faces set, eyes locked in, ready to finally deliver real results this time. Perfect weather hangs over the training grounds as clouds glide by, and Ben suddenly erupts, screaming at the top of his lungs about how they're going to crush this. Training roared on as Gulgan stormed in, shouting at the forest wolves, "Bring it on," because he was ready for absolutely anything. The group stares out over a whole field packed with rows of wooden training dummies, standing there like a challenge waiting to be faced, and they can't look away. Larisha's jaw drops in disbelief as she stares at Varian, blurting that this has to be a prank, because they're the pros, right? Varian just slumps on the fence and tells them, straight up, he can't yank magical beasts out of thin air. So they kick things off with dummies first, and Hannah's furious, like they're flat out disrespecting her. Gulgan snaps at the rest of the party to hurry up and just get this over with, while Varian just grins and laughs, then tells them he can't wait to see what they've got. He slams an hourglass on the table and barks, 3 minutes, take the target down now. Then he screams for them to start, and the entire party snaps into combat stances on the spot. Larisha bursts into chanting for a speed boost, while Hannah snaps her flame scatter shot into position, ready to unleash it, and Ben barrels straight forward, roaring that getting the lead is exactly why he showed up. Larisha snaps her chant to a close and flings a wave of support magic at Gulgan, who braces himself to move, right on cue. Feeling that speed boost hit like electricity, Larisha just handed him the opening, and now he's betting he can ride this momentum to sweep in and flank the targets from the other side, right where Ben's not even looking. Ben is barreling forward, plotting his next move to wipe them all out. He suddenly rockets across the field with a blistering attack, barreling straight toward the training dummies. Hannah watched him leave, shaking her head in disbelief because he was booking it, way too fast for her to keep up. Just like that, boom, a massive explosion tears through the air, and someone screams at Galgan to dive out of the way. Leaving him wide-eyed, he snaps his gaze toward a blast he never saw coming. Then he spots another. Here comes another one barreling straight at him, and he starts losing control again. How is this happening for the second time? The energy slams into the ground and detonates into a massive blast of smoke and fire. Gulgan starts thrashing and cursing, scrambling to escape just before the whole mess snaps shut on him. Gulgan snaps to the realization that the chaos has frozen him mid-motion. His teeth clench hard as he forces himself to think, no way, I've got to catch up right now, or He's about to crash and burn, so he screams at the top of his lungs and pours every last ounce of strength into one final, desperate swing. He and Ben crash into the training dummy at the exact same instant, their weapons smashing into the wood with a violent crack as they both snap into total panic, eyes bulging wide as they realize the chaos they just caused with their own messed up coordination. Varian yells from the sidelines, "That's enough for today," while Hannah and Larisha just stand there, staring at the wreck like it's all happening in slow motion. The training dummy slumps out in the field, barely clinging to life after that brutal practice session. The party members slump and start trudging back toward the fence, hearts heavy with the brutal truth that everything's gone horribly wrong, and Varian shows up right there, cutting in to tell them how it all. They actually managed to team up like a real squad, until now. He scans them, locks eyes, and fires the question, "So tell me, what do you think you're missing right now?" She realized what was missing, and the whole thing crumbled. Hannah froze, staring at the ground, sweating hard as her mind spiraled. What if the missing piece is actually gay? Varian tilts his head to the sky, calm as ever, and smiles at the group like, "Your guess is, you're only half right." Ben just stands there, totally stunned, and blurts out, "Okay, wait, what asterisk are you doing for us, Gaius?" Ben tries to wrap his head around it, but instead he just freezes, stares into space, and admits he's starting to wonder the same thing too. Gulgan stared down at that specific. A sharp memory slams into him, and it clicks. Gaius wasn't just talking, he was barking the instructions right to him. He still remembers the whole group standing there, like it's burned into his mind. Back in the day, we really did get everything working together. Gulgan keeps insisting that, yelling out like it's some brand new idea, like he's only just now realizing it. He snaps back into pure focus and hammers it into the team. "Review how we were moving, Poe," pointing out that Ben always kicked off every battle by charging in from the right side. Then it hits him. Hannah always topped it off by slamming a huge area of effect spell across everything. And right then, Larisha would make sure to land every single strike, clean, sharp, and on time. Slamming into Gulgan with a speed boost buff, he surged forward to keep the momentum blazing. Gulgan can't stop replaying that old rhythm in their head, how they'd hold back until the perfect buff hit, then strike from the side opposite of Ben. The truth starts slamming into the whole crew, and they finally realize everyone was just living for their own path, doing their own thing based on their own. So it all came down to his own judgment, so that's why it was. But it didn't take long before they started piling on top of each other, blocking every move, and slamming into one another in full-on chaos. Finally, it clicks. They admit the only reason they could fight flawlessly back then was because nothing ever went wrong before. Gaius was always locked in on the chaos, scanning the whole battlefield and piping in the exact orders they needed to stay perfectly in sync. Varian shoots Goljan a smug, satisfied grin like, "Looks like you finally leveled up. Now you can actually see it and say it out loud." Goljan pauses for half a heartbeat, then snaps out that from this point on, what they truly need to do is. Hannah bursts in and shouts that they've got to start calling to each other, loud and clear, so everyone knows exactly which targets they're hitting. Larisha is practically buzzing as she demands they clock how everyone's moving so they can read the room and forge real teamwork. And Ben just stands there beaming, fully locked in with the new plan. The Crescent Claw party huddles in the clearing, finally synced up and looking like they're about to strike. Gulgan locks onto the horizon with a grim stare, admitting this won't be easy, but they have to learn how to move as one real team, even as nearby. Myria lingers nearby, flashes them a calm smile, and lets her thoughts drift in silence, watching every move. She told herself she wasn't ready to take on the hate just yet. The whole crew goes wild because that girl just sparked them all up. The girls were screaming, "We've got this," while Golgan burst in, rallying everyone to go all in and give it their very best. Arian just bursts into laughter at their hype, telling them he loves that fire in their spirit. He barks that he'll keep them training for however many days it takes to nail it, and the whole group erupts in cheers. They nodded in unison. Our deal was locked in. The story swings to a jagged cliffside, and right there, things already start boiling, because of. Goblins came barreling out, weapons up, screaming at the top of their lungs as they hunted for a single opening. Hesitated for a split second, then sprang sky high and landed squarely on top of them, and she slashed her way straight through the pack. Then Gaius bursts in, shouting that he's got her back. Myria won't stop. She barrels through, cutting through. She screams at her team to wipe them all out, tearing through the monsters to finish the whole group they lured here in one deadly blow. Gaius yells back that he's got it, boots thundering against the ground as he snaps into position. Myriad shot up into the sky, clearing the chaos and pressing the attack with relentless pressure. She lets out this tiny laugh, like she's genuinely enjoying every second of it. "I'm loving how this fight is unfolding right now." While she keeps the pack snarling and chasing her, Gaius sprints up the jagged ridge to stake out a perfect view. He yanks his bow back, fixes his gaze on the targets below, and braces to unleash the shot. "Gaius, come on, let's ditch the magic for a bit." He unleashed rapid fire, and a raging storm of arrows slammed down, shredding the goblins without mercy. Myria wastes no time. She whips out her special move, Diamond Dust, spinning through the air and blasting everything in her path into icy ruin. Luarisha stands frozen in place, soaking up every hit, watching it all unfold. Watching the two of them click instantly, like they were made to move as one. With the pack wiped clean, the whole area goes dead quiet. Everything goes silent, and in its wake, there's a mountain of monsters sitting right on the trail. Myria scans the now cleared ground and blurts out that they probably hunted down every last goblin in that cave. And Gaius locks eyes on her for a heartbeat. Then before he even finishes saying it, he realizes she's gotten way stronger lately. Just look at it, her fighting style has flipped completely. Nothing like the days when she was only a mage. Myria suddenly blushes, tries to brush it off like it's no big deal, but she swallows her pride and admits, straight up, how brutally hard she's been training. And in her quiet thoughts, she relives every grueling hour she spent pounding toward that train. He trained on a dummy, begging to become worthy of him. Nothing confirms it like the fact that the real fight is happening right next to him. She starts replaying his every move, his razor-sharp awareness and the split-second calls he makes. Judgment sharp as a blade, and his throwing skills, absolutely lethal. Sure, to everyone else they look like simple moves, but she knows every single one is top-tier power. She realized she wasn't going to find anyone this dependable, even among the A-rank pros she'd already seen. The ceiling above them is cracked to pieces, raining down rocky chunks. Down by the campfire, a steaming pot of stew churns and bubbles, spilling out warm, mouth-watering smells. Gaius and Myria break off the hunt to throw down camp, while Sucre keeps watch. As Myria stares into the flames and blurts out, "How long has it been since we started this?" And she can't stop smiling at the fact that they're finally bossing their own dreams, together and for each other. Gaius clocks her vibe, breaks into a grin, and tells her that these calm, quiet moments are exactly the kind of nice he didn't know he needed. He brags that they've been tearing through a ton of hunting spots lately, no joke. Then he leans in and tells her, "Tomorrow when we hit town, we'll get everything set up and ready, no delays." Myria's eyes light up, and she blurts out, "So does this mean we're finally about to smash into the real dungeon?" Gaius just flashes her a confident grin, like he's already braced for whatever's coming next. Gaius stares at their camping gear, grins, and says he knows they'll be just fine together, and Miria finally gets the courage to say it with full confidence, locking eyes with him and wearing the softest, happiest smile in those lights of hers. Gaius backs her up and she tilts her head toward him, feeling utterly safe and fully supported. Miria tells him that when she's out there fighting right beside him, her fear evaporates instantly, so she feels brave and unstoppable. Gaius rubs his head and blurts, "Wait, are we sure that's actually good?" And she answers without hesitation, "Yeah, definitely." She leaned on him harder than she ever leaned on any other group, because his advice always hit different. That advice keeps her locked in and makes her feel unstoppable, like she can dodge anything life throws at her. As the stew bubbles away, she leans in and tells him, being a team just feels insanely right. Gia just stands there, visibly moved, and a gentle smile blooms across his face as he repeats words that come with a little laugh. Then he leans in and asks, "So being together really feels that good?" And he accidentally blurts out that not once during all his adventures had anyone ever hit him with words like that before. Miria just giggles and tells him, "Feeling this unstoppable is the sweet little perk you get when you're an attacker." The two of them huddle down for the night, soaking in the campfire's warm glow inside the cave, while, as they lock eyes for a quiet second, everything feels right, like the world finally goes still. Suddenly, the silence shatters as she declares the stew is finally done, and they all look up. Gaze down at the bubbling pot of meat, steaming so hard it fogs the air, and you can't help but keep going. Gaius takes his first huge bite, and the second it hits, pure shock explodes across his face because it's unbelievably amazing. He can't believe it, and he thinks, the flavor is way richer than everything he's ever forged. Around the crackling campfire, Miria leans in and reveals her secret ingredient. Then she tells him she tosses in butter, and that's why the flavor slaps way harder than anything he's used to. This morning hits and the sun's blazing high above the buildings. Yeah, it screams one thing: today's the perfect day to train. Down in the training grounds, a forest wolf lies sprawled and slumped on the dirt, utterly crushed, defeated. After the rookies finally crushed it, the young adventurers burst into cheers at the top of their lungs, soaking up every second like they just smashed the win. Right then the announcement blares, magic beast extermination begins. Drill S finally over, and the hotshot rookie warrior is brimming with energy. He fires up his team and speaks up. Now they can finally dive into real dungeons for the first time. From behind the counter, the guild clerk stares them down, then gives a polite nod like they're exactly where they need to be, cheering them on and shouting, "Congratulations, you passed." Then boom, a massive sound crashes through the streets and the guys go stone, still like they just saw a ghost, and boom, there's a colossal monster trapped in a huge cage, getting dragged through town by a crew of draconics. Sucre stares as the beast stomps past, and the whole crowd erupts in panic, people scrambling, shouting, and demanding to know what that roar even was, because there's no way anything that huge is real. A towering beast snarls like it owns the streets as they drag it past everyone, and then someone blurts out that it's not just a monster, it's part of the training, but the rookies can't even process it. Absolute shock hits them as the warrior roars in disbelief, while the guy beside him just stares, stunned, asking who in the world could possibly top something like that. The guild clerk keeps grinning and slips them the good news. An adventurer is right now locked in some special training. Training right now, no excuses, just pure grind. Out in the field, the beast turns everything into pure chaos. It barrels forward and swings that massive claw straight at Ben. Look, Lurisha stays locked in and screams that the defense buffs are ready. Ben can suddenly feel the power surge, and he cracks that he can take this hit with zero trouble. So Hannah spots the opening, yells for Golgan to fire his shot, then the whole moment hits like, wait, everything is low. Lined up so perfectly, the leader could step in like it was destiny. Golgan throws a fierce, determined look across everyone and orders the rest of the party to step out right now, every last one of them. Everything to him like his whole world, wrapped in one heartbeat. He launches off the ground, yanks his blade back, and pours every last ounce of power into his special. He digs in to end it, then slams the blade down in a blazing flash, slicing the air and thudding a brutal hit. The beast's head snaps back from the hit, so hard it finally looks like the S-rank party is ready to flex. Clear skies hang over the training ground as the practice session finally grinds to a close. The beast sprawls dead on the ground, and the whole group finally chokes in a breath after the chaos. Varian grins at them and declares, "That's enough for today." They cheered, saying D finally nailed the basics of being adventurers, everything from teamwork all the way to cleaning up after missions. He then claims that with their current skills, he wouldn't even hesitate to send them on a real quest. Ben blurts in pure excitement, and Hannah nods like, "We're finally ready." Together, they're about to tackle a dungeon. He watches them in silence, and in his head he reminds himself, This is only the opening shot, and then But he blurts to the whole group that they've all genuinely changed since the moment they started this. Hannah flashes a grin at her leader and says she always knew Gulgan could pull it off if he'd just bothered to try and Galgan stays ice calm, claiming it was her cheers that lit a fire in his heart and pushed him to finish the job. Larisha beams at Ben and tells him his back looked even bigger than usual today. Ben just shrugs and laughs, saying a tank is basically worthless if it doesn't have something to shield it. Varian watches the group trade flirty banter and teamwork, and a warm smile lights up his face. He lets out a satisfied sigh, stunned by just how far they've come since the very beginning. Varian screams at them to speed up and get their applications in at the guild. Now, the story rockets to the heart of town, where that massive guild building looms in the bright morning light. Crescent Claw's 4 members huddled side by side, eyes locked in, looking like they're about to tear back into the job. But as they pass through, people start whispering up a storm, questioning if it's really them and saying, "I thought The whole crew vanished into thin air. Out of nowhere, someone in the crowd blurts that they've been spotted lately, training hard at the practice grounds and roaming the hunting fields like clockwork. Even so, another guy refuses to believe it. No matter how hard they grind, you can't just scrub away the wreckage of their past mistakes. Varian just smirks at all the noise about how young he is, like he already knows exactly what they're missing. People can't get enough gossip as they stride together toward They stride up to the guild counter, and the moment they hit the desk, the clerk freezes, caught completely off guard. The clerk spots them in an instant, then beams and greets the Crescent Claw crew and Master Barian like he's been waiting all day. He tells them you crushed it with your training, and then asks, "All right, what else can I do for you today?" Varian wastes no time. He leans in and tells the clerk he's sending the whole group to wipe out that one specific dungeon. He straightens his glasses and says he knows exactly asterisk, which Varian he means. Hannah and Larisha stare at him, totally baffled, and then Hannah blurts, "Wait, so which dungeon are you talking about exactly?" The clerk says it's a B-rank stop, but the place is cursed with weirdness, because they've spotted special monsters that don't even match the local species. Then he adds that nobody's managed to clear it yet, and that's turned into a real crisis, because it's been left to rot for way too long. Goljan looks totally on edge and blurts out that it sounds like a creepy horror story, while Varian just stands there cracking up. Varian keeps on going, laying it out that all of this is turning into a full-on headache for the guild. Since the rewards don't hit hard enough for the high rankers, and still but the real workload is brutal, way too much for any B rank or lower to survive, so they're talking about cranking the difficulty up. Goljan leans in as the explanation hits him, and the moment it clicks, he starts snapping the clues into place, realization crashing down hard like, oh, that's what it means. This dungeon is basically their golden shot to prove they've got what it takes. And yeah, that's where it gets scary, because and then made a jaw-dropping comeback. Ben's got that pumped-up look as he stares straight ahead, snapping to the crew, "All right, move out." The whole crew heads out together, shutting down every bit of town gossip and drama being thrown their way. All they can think about is smashing into this dungeon raid, and finally wiping the stain off their names for good. Galjan strides ahead like he owns the place, grinning through the nerves, ready to square up with whatever creepy, undead nonsense is lurking inside. The party rocks up on their mounts in front of those massive stone dungeon doors, like they're about to kick open the end of the world. Goljan cranes his neck at the entrance, and right behind him Ben bursts into laughter, both of them finally ready to kick this thing off for real. Gulgan locks in on the prize while Ben blurts out, "It's been forever since we've hit a real raid." Varian snaps at the crew to lock in and brace hard, but Larisha cracks and admits her legs are starting to go shaky, which is Hannah is the total opposite. She's bursting with excitement because she finally gets to go all out and unleash as much magic as she wants. The entire crew huddles tight as those massive gates begin to grind open, because the raid is finally, officially happening. Whenever someone rolls up with the courage to actually test this place and push it to the limit, those massive stone doors rumbled and swung wide open just for them. This dungeon is a whole different beast. Once you're inside, the usual rules of the world start falling apart. Glowing eyes stare from the shadows while monsters hunch in place, ready to pounce out from every dark corner at any second. But even when they wipe the monsters out, the dungeon still drags every last bit of them back into the walls like it's hungry. And yeah, there's no day or night in this place at all. The lights never blink. It's bright 24/7 non-stop. Dungeons aren't simple at all. They don't have some neat, one-time entrance. They just show up out of nowhere asterisk, popping into existence wherever they feel like it. Breaking free is even messier, because to escape a dungeon alive, there are only a few real options. The first escape move is to hunt down a secret magic circle tucked away somewhere inside. the kind that snaps you back to your second move, hunt the dungeon boss, tear it down, and then smash the glowing one after it. A hidden core wrapped and tucked deep inside its body. If a party can snatch the core, the dungeon is counted as cleared, and everyone gets slammed into a warp the moment it hits. Goljan and Hannah ride the group deeper into the tunnels, pushing the whole crew to go even farther underground. As they ride on, someone throws out the rumors they're hearing about what's really going on. They heard whispers of a rare variant monster creeping around somewhere nearby, which makes Hannah snap into action, demanding to know why the details on this thing are so fuzzy and impossible to wrap your head around. She doesn't even finish her sentence before she slams to a stop. Something is definitely shifting in the air around them. Larisha pulls out her scouting instincts, looking wrecked as she insists there's a heavy, failure-scented vibe crawling in the air. A gigantic, scaly foot, claws first, comes crashing down onto the stone floor with a bone-rattling slam. 3 reptilian monsters named Sicknose slither out of the darkness and creep in fast, closing the distance on their prey. Goljan yells that it's a magic beast, and as Hannah stares on, dread starts clawing at her gut because something is terribly wrong. She clamps a hand over her mouth, mutters that the smell is totally wrong, and then it hits. Something about all of this is unmistakably off. Varian's face breaks into sweat as he blurts, "Wait, are we sure this is half undead?" Because every single report he's seen said nothing about it. He snaps to the group that their usual fighting style won't stand a chance against an enemy like this. But Goljan just flashes a confident look and shrugs it off. Half-breed or not, it changes nothing. And he claims this undead opponent is his golden ticket to prove to everyone, once and for all, what he can truly do. Varian just stares at him, wide-eyed and waiting, like, okay, show me what you're gonna do next, because especially since Golgan is a paladin, basically a top-tier knight, because he's been granted a special blessing by all those brutal years of training that nearly broke him. Golgan's slashes come wrapped in a holy power, so he don't even think you'll need any extra enchantments. Because that holy power is the undead monster's biggest weakness, he's basically the ultimate counter, perfectly built to shut them down. A normal party would be getting crushed in a place like this, but this is the exact moment when Golgan, the Holy Knight and the Crescent Claw party's main weapon, steps into the spotlight. He bursts onto the scene and starts flexing a wildly insane power that nobody else can even dream of. He roars at everyone to stay on them, screaming for a lightning-speed strike. The rest of the crew falls in line behind him, and Ben lifts his weapon like a signal, gearing up to smash in and charge forward. Golgan roars and whips his blade around in a massive, wide arc. He slashed right through the monster while charging past it on his mount. And he halts right there, spins around, and stares back at his party as the dust from the fight begins to rise. This crew is cruising through the challenge like it's a joke, and Varian watches with a huge, big smile plastered on his face, like he can't believe how damn impressive the whole thing really is. Turns out that training finally crushed it, because the Crescent Claw party is moving with flawless coordination now. Even Varian, the real expert, can't help but stare in pure awe as they plow through every monster in their path, one after another. And it's been exactly like this ever since they first started climbing down into that dungeon. 3 whole days have blown by since it all started. After all that chaos, the whole team finally kicks back at a tiny campsite they've built right inside the ruins. Ben drops the news that they've already cleared 5 floors, so with a B-rank spot this small, they should be basically done, until something hits them right after that. Then Hannah whips her head around the camp and blurts out where Jurgen is hiding. One of them blurts out, "Jurgen just took off too. Go grab some water right now like a second ago." Larisha glances back at Hannah, and wow, Hannah's face is set in pure seriousness. Hannah drops her gaze to her drink and tells them, "We made it this far on our own, so now we finally." Finally, she understood just how hard Gaius was working to keep them safe. She stared off into the distance, and her breath caught. She keeps telling herself she wants him to finally see how far they've grown, even as she admits that asking him to come was hard. Come back is just a selfish wish to her, and deep down, she really wants to make sure she gets at least that. Make the Crescent Claw party a name everyone fears, and yeah, make it count. And honestly, she can only hope that somewhere, somehow, Gaius finally hears. Hannah stares ahead with pure determination burning in her eyes as she slips into this silent. That silent promise can wait, but first, she's locked in on one thing, getting everyone through this dungeon alive and safe. That dinner's ready, and it slams into Golgan like a surprise punch, right as he's about. He shouts back that he's on his way, then the scene snaps right back to the dungeon's dark stone entrance looms ahead, and you can feel everything about to take a deadly turn. Golgan and the girls look totally wrecked with stress, while Varian just stands there cackling like the whole thing is a joke. A fiery horse monster rockets forward, and someone blurts out that the most troublesome beast just walked in. Ben snaps and screams that it's not real magic, it's a straight-up nightmare, while Larisha panics, trying to figure out why a beast like that even bothered showing up in a B-rank dungeon. The nightmare is a full-on freak of nature, like literally devours the minds of anyone who gets too close. It's over, you're trapped in a nightmare, slowly wasting away, and you never wake up again. Gul'jin and Gaius lock in and hold their ground, but they both feel it. They're in way over their heads, and trouble is closing in fast. Gul'jin and Ben gear up to throw down, but when Gul'jin admits he's fought one of these before, his words trail off, because Gaius was always there to step in and help, and now he's not. And he knows going toe-to-toe with this thing like it's a normal monster is about to turn into pure nightmare. He spirals into self-doubt, asking himself if he can pull this off at all, without Gaius there to back him up. But Hannah clocks his spiral, shoots him a question, and cuts through the silence of him just brooding there alone. She acts like it's no big deal, tilts her head, and asks if the plan is basically just to blow the horse's head off, which completely blindsides Gul'jin. He just stands there staring at her and realizes she's not even a little afraid. Then, when Larisha finally speaks up, her voice shakes a bit, but she pushes through and reveals she's been thinking of a way to deal with this too. She tells them to tap into Hannah's ice magic and carve a clear route straight through the flames, and he swears he'll hold a holy barrier up, no matter what, to guard everyone in the background, and Ben's getting so fired up it's boiling. Ben launches into the fray on the spot, yelling that he'll storm the front line and lead the charge himself. Ben gets his armor locked in place and tells the rest of the group, "I'm counting on you, don't let me down," just in case everything goes sideways. And Gul'jin just stares at Ben and Larisha, completely stunned. He can't believe they're actually ready to jump in, making him freeze. He suddenly clocks it. Somehow he's been getting timid lately without even realizing it, and now his thoughts start spiraling toward how. But he can't hunt Gaius's shadow forever. He has to break away now, especially because it's crystal clear now. He's not walking into this fight alone anymore. He scans his team and finally cracks. Like, for the first time in forever, these are the people he can actually lean on. Ben declares the plan is locked in, and Larisha screams at everyone to move, right as Ben. Ben clenches his resolve and launches into the charge, eyes locked in like he's about to win. Larisha stays hot on his heels, shouting her special skill as she hurls up barrier after barrier, and then she blasts her support magic to vanish their approach, catching the enemy off guard with a perfect ambush. The nightmare monster lunges up from the dark, massive, terrifying, like it's about to tear everything apart. But Ben dug in and refused to move, standing his ground right in front of it. Hannah and Gul'jin lock eyes, breathe in, and brace themselves, because the moment they cast that massive combined spell, everything's about to explode. As the winds whip around them, Larisha stands off to the side, staring while the two stay perfectly matched, moving in lockstep. They're both fired up and going full throttle, swearing they'll slam these things with every ounce of strength they've got. Gul'jin kicks off the chant, begging the holy light to flood his blade from within. Blade braces as Hannah gathers her mana, and barks a command at the freezing air to join the strike, because they're snapping back into perfect sync, like a well-oiled machine again, and they bend the energy into whatever shape they want, and carve a clean path straight through the chaos. Gul'jin screams for the magic to blast forward and erase every enemy in their path. Then Hannah. She hurls her icicle road spell down the ground, blasting open a frozen path that shoots straight to her target. He drove a Saint Anima slash straight through it, blasting the nightmare apart in a roaring storm of light and steel. The nightmare gets smashed straight through the heart of that massive blast, right in the middle of it. And this final hit is the one that ends the whole fight for good. Everything erupts in a massive blast, and when the smoke finally clears, there's nothing left. As the final pieces of the beast crumble away into thin air, Varian bursts into laughter, praises them for a job well done, and then leads them out. And Gul'jin claims it all went smooth, while Hannah shrugs and says it felt effortless thanks to their teamwork. Varian stares out at the area as the smoke finally thins away, and he can't stop thinking about how brutally easy it was for them to shut down that nightmare. He finally clocks it. This crew is way stronger than he ever imagined, and he straight up admits that stumbling on a monster this strong inside the dungeon was pure, rotten luck. Sucre tells himself this isn't hopeless, but then a half-undead monster storms in, and everything instantly changes. And he's dead certain this dungeon is seriously, unmistakably wrong. Varian stares into the dark and says, "We're about to slam into the bottom floor any second." But then it clicks, those pesky little pests have been tailing them the entire time. So he tells himself, staying put is the best move. Stay razor sharp as he pushes on through the Sucre, slipping past the rest of the group. Stone stairs plunged even deeper into the pitch-black darkness. Gul'jin is in the thick of it, hacking through a swarm of flying monsters while dust and chaos swirl around him. Later, the whole crew huddles around a crackling fire, devours a meal, knocks back drinks, and powers back up. And then one by one, they all collapse and pass out right on slumped onto the floor, finally grabbing a bit of rest. Goljan keeps pounding forward on Sucre's back, and then he blurts, "We finally made it, this is the spot." The whole crew finally stomps down to the bottom floor, and they all freeze, staring at the huge stone door waiting ahead. She can't help but feel her nerves spike about what's lurking inside. Ben nods, admitting he never, ever gets used to that creepy electric tension that hits right before a boss fight. They keep charging down the stairs side by side, staying tight together as they finally grind their way up to the last level, until the game calls, "Go." Golgan suddenly slams on the brakes, yells for everyone to wait, and you can practically feel something sinister hanging in the air. Then she locks her gaze forward and blurts out that she can actually feel someone else lurking nearby. So the entire party goes dead silent, everyone scanning the dark like it's hiding something terrifying. A dark hallway, hunted for any flicker of movement. Goljan grabs the reins, pushes for the front, and tells Hannah to hang back and back him up. And she shoots back fast, "I'm ready, let's go." Golgan yanks his sword free, presses himself to the stone wall, and stealthily peeks around the corner like his life depends on it. Golgan explodes forward, sword already drawn, slicing through the air with blistering speed. But the second his blade swings out, it gets slammed to a stop by a dark-haired guy gripping a dagger in his hand, blade glinting in the shadows. They both go stone, still when their eyes snap together, because neither one can wrap their head around who they're actually seeing. The whole group slams to a stop right behind Golgan, and the shock hits them like a punch to the chest. Goljan blurts out Gaius's name in raw disbelief, but Gaius just stands there, unshaken. Then a suffocating silence crashes over the hallway, and both sides lock eyes, frozen in place. Golgan's skin starts to break into a cold sweat as he spirals, realizing just how brutally awkward this whole mess has gotten. He starts spiraling, wondering why Gaius is even here, while Varian stays in the back, laughing like it's all a joke, and that's when it finally hits Goljan. His master was the one who arranged this whole meeting. He's sure the old man dug through the guild records, tracked their locations one by one, and set all of this in motion. Golgan is sweating bullets as it hits him. Varian planned this whole awkward run-in from the very beginning, and Hannah isn't making things any easier, yelling at him to quit just standing there and finally speak up. Goljan spirals into panic, frantic about what he's supposed to do or say in a place like this, while Larisha jumps in too, urging his leader to get his head straight and act right, while Hannah chimes in that he better make a great impression, because this confrontation it's already underway. He clears his throat for a beat, fighting the nerves hard, determined to look cool like it's no big deal. But when he greets Gaius, his words come out painfully stiff as he scrambles for anything to explain himself. Then bam, he flips a switch and turns into a smiling, hyped TV host, grilling Gaius on why he's hanging around the dungeon. Gaius just stands there, staring with this totally blank face, like his brain just shut off mid-sentence. Totally, staring in disbelief at how bizarre his old leader's acting. But the rest of the party can. He only watched from the back, eyes burning with pure exhaustion at that humiliating scene. Starts losing it, screaming that he totally blew his big moment, like he's just stood there, utterly wrecked, like the guy's energy was draining him with every second. Marius strides up to Gaius and demands to know what's wrong, clocking that strange vibe rolling off the whole group. But the second she opens her mouth, the whole old party snaps still, wide-eyed and terrified like they've just seen a ghost. Gaius cuts through the noise and tells the group, straight up, that her name is Myria, and says he only ran into her after everyone else finally went their separate ways. Golgan and Hannah snap at the same time, screaming that Gaius is really out there traveling with a girl, while back in the shadows, someone keeps whispering, desperate to crack who she really is. Hannah asks, did we really drag ourselves all the way here with only 2 people? Does that feel like a bit much? But Larisha, standing there, cheeks burning, he blurts out that Myria is insanely cute. Larisha keeps blurting on in the background about how Myria is so unbelievably cute it's criminal. Totally awkward, because Gaius and Myria can hear every single word they're saying. Gaius snaps everything back into place, explaining that their real mission is to get that magic sword here, and he's decided he'll keep right on standing by Myria, even after the job is finished. Goljan is totally stunned, like someone just dropped the biggest revelation of his life, but then his tough act crumbles, and he admits he's just relieved Gaius isn't out there suffering all by himself. Gaius just bursts into laughter and tells him, Yo, I was thinking the exact same thing. And honestly, it feels amazing seeing the entire old crew still doing great. He grins and confesses he was low-key panicking about whether they'd pull it off. But that lands like a sucker punch on Hannah. She snaps, "Wait, did you just say you're worried?" Hannah tore into him, screaming that everything that happened after he left turned into a total nightmare. And she tells him, "If you're gonna dump all your stuff on us, the least you could have done is leave a note." She finally blurts out that it was mostly on them for skipping the official handover, while Gulgan just stands there, frozen in. And right then he realized, yeah, things had gotten wildly awkward. He's still reeling from that huge emotional goodbye, and then boom, he runs into the guy again almost immediately. The pressure keeps crashing down on him, so hard he can't even form a single word. Hannah spots him acting off the wall, fidgeting like crazy, and so she calls his name and blurts, "Why are you acting so quiet out of nowhere?" He blurts out that when it comes to, Gaius stands there totally speechless, like his brain just blanks out. But Hannah just stares him down and asks, straight up, what he's really feeling about seeing his old friend again. With a heavy expression on his face, he looked like he was carrying the whole world on his shoulders. Then he finally opens his mouth and tells Gaius, straight up, that he's dying to see him watch their fight. But wait, he says he wants Gaius back on their side, fighting with them once again. And he bows his head so low it's almost pleading, saying he just wants one real chance to apologize properly for everything. Hannah watches from the sidelines, smiling softly as Gulgan fumbles for the right words. So she gives him a tiny shove and whispers, telling him. She pushes him, basically saying, "Go on, say what you've got to say." Gulgan shouts at him and Gaius snaps around, staring like, "So, what are you thinking?" The leader pauses just long enough to steady his breath, and when he looks up, pure determination burns even brighter than before. And he asks if they can do it one more time, officially inviting the Gaius surged to the party again. Gaius just froze in place, staring in total shock at the offer. Gaius just stands there, totally baffled, and all he can do is blurt out a shocked sound as his brain scrambles to make sense of what he heard. Gulgan barrels on, insisting their goal is dead simple. They just want to clear this dungeon with him. And he even offers Gaius every last thing they find, every loot drop, like he's cutting him in on all of it. Every magic sword they picked up, every single one, belonged to him. He tells Gaius he needs him to check how strong they've gotten and back them up in the fight, so Gaius is left. Miria watches from the sidelines as Gaius starts to sweat, struggling to get a single word out because the offer hits him out of nowhere. She locks eyes with him, bracing for whatever he's about to do, while Gaius replays every single moment this group has put him through. It's honestly weird to even imagine myself fighting, like my brain can't decide if it's courage or madness, with the very same crew who kicked him out in the first place. But he knows if Gulgan hadn't been that sincere, if the seer had brought it up, he'd have shut him down right there on the spot. But the real reason Gaius can't bring himself to say no right now is because Galgan's seriousness hits the moment he locks eyes with him. This guy isn't bluffing. You can tell he means every word. Varian locks eyes with Gaius and admits this whole mess probably feels like it hit out of nowhere. So he wastes no time. He cuts straight to it and asks Gaius if he's interested. He couldn't wait to see what his old teammates could really pull off these days. Gaius just freezes in place, baffled, and keeps mumbling true power, like he can't wrap his head around what he's hearing. Varian just bursts into laughter and admits that even a seasoned vet like him had to grind his heart out to get them in fighting shape. And yeah, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He straight up tells Gaius the crew used to be painfully pathetic in more ways than one, leaving. Hannah and Larisha looked mortified as he admitted that most folks like them never even bother to change. But the Crescent Claw crew wouldn't let the chatter get under their skin. They actually took his coaching to heart and pushed themselves to the absolute limit. Realized they crushed the entire dungeon conquest solo. No help from a single soul. Any help from him or from Gaius. And it's obvious they climbed here on sheer grit alone. No more coasting on someone else's success. With the whole party packed side by side, Varian leans in and tells Gaius, "This isn't the same team I remember." Gaius takes a beat to soak in everything Varian just spilled about how the party's been growing, and then, finally, his face clears as he says, "I get it," so he throws out a suggestion. It's basically screaming at them, team up right now and wipe out the rest of the dungeon together. Even the Draconix mounts light up when they spot each other again. One blurts that it's been way too long, and the other fires back, "So, how have things been lately?" Hannah grins the second it hits her. "Man, it's been ages since they last fought side by side, Gay. Seriously, why are you calling it Gaius like this?" And she says that the fact he and Miria pushed this far on their own proves they're top-tier adventurers. So everyone's been hyping it up, talking about it non-stop, and telling them he's got nothing but trust in them. Gaius just bursts into laughter, waves them off like, "Knock it off," and plays humble, insisting he has no business judging anybody because, honestly, the truth is he got his hands full getting here. Some monsters nearly broke him, like the psych nose and those flaming, half-undead nightmares Hannah swears are way more powerful than anything they can handle. To even get inside a regular beer-anked dungeon. She asks if Gaius got tangled in the same nightmares, and the second he admits he did, he finally cracks and starts to open up, saying, honestly, worry started clawing at him. Because just him and Miria, maybe it still wasn't going to be enough to crush the final boss by themselves. Gaius snaps into it, breaking down the whole situation, insisting that they'd have to seriously reevaluate the rank of this. There's zero doubt about it. The boss behind those massive doors is absolutely S-rank material. The whole crew cuts off mid-motion, eyes snapping to him, hanging on his words as the chaos finally eases. Larisha shifts her focus to Myria and demands to know if she's the one who's been tagging along with Gaius this whole time. Hannah stands off to the side, arms crossed tight, and shoots the new girl a sharp, skeptical look that screams, yeah, we'll see. Myria just smiles and introduces herself, right on the spot, dropping the truth that she's Gaius, companion and an official party member, and then she starts to tell. It tells them her name is Myria, and you learn she's a magic swordswoman. With a bored little huff, pretending she's not absolutely stunned by the news. She tells Miria just do your best and make sure. So yeah, tell her straight up. She'd better not start dragging everyone else down with her. Miria doesn't fire back, but her face goes completely blank as that comment lands. Lands like a direct punch to the gut. Miria won't just swallow that insult. She snaps back, saying that unlike a certain S-rank party, she actually runs the same train every single day. So yeah, there's no reason to panic. She even says she's worried the big sis seniors' instincts might have gone rusty since. Hannah breaks into a fake laugh, then snaps at Miria that she's got a big mouth for someone who's only a jack of all trades. He throws down a threat too, warning Miria to watch it. Her fire magic better not turn that long hair into a frizzy perm. Miria just flashes a smile and asks if that means Hannah doesn't trust her own magic control, and it really strikes a nerve. She tells Hannah to stay in the back and keep her elbows warm while everyone else does the real work. Hannah snaps her control in half and warns Miria not to underestimate what a black mage can unleash. Remind the girl that she's the guy in the Crescent Claw party who does the real damage. And Miria should just stop everything, dash around, and sweep the trash mobs out of the back like her life depends on it. The two of them tumble into a furious showdown on the stairwell. Growling at each other, they barreled in, sparks blasting between them like lightning. Larisha gets all fired up and tells the guys to back off. This is a woman's fight, and no one's getting in her way, while Ben just stands there, looking totally wiped out by the whole mess. Galjan finally steps in, rings the moment back into place, and tells everyone, hey, stop stalling. We're supposed to plan strategy before we even step inside. The whole crew crowds up in front of that giant door, and for the first time they look like a real team again, every one of them standing tall with their mounts, ready to explode the moment someone gives the go-ahead. Luarisha whips her gaze around and blurts out. Ben notices the place is weirdly calm and nice, and that's when it hits him. Everything has shifted. This isn't the Crescent Claw he used to know, and it's not only the others that changed. He's been changing too, since day one when they all started together. Gaius locks eyes with his former party members, and declares he's finally ready to prove, right here and now, that he's grown tenfold since they threw him out. Goljan's eyes sharpen into pure focus, as he says the plan is finally ready, then fires the question straight at the group. Are they really prepared for what's coming? Gaius leans in with a sly smirk, and tells him it's a bit late to suddenly ask if they're ready now that they're right outside the door. The two of them stand shoulder to shoulder by the entrance, and Gaius shoots him a look like, no matter what hits us in there, I've got you. Turns out somebody tampered with the monsters. In this dungeon, he blasted everyone with undead powers they'd never had before. And that dark energy hit so hard it would have broken anything in its way. It twisted every last psych nose and nightmare into half-dead, crawling freaks. From the way it all looks, the team's basically betting that some terrifying, high-level undead boss is waiting at the finish line. So this S-rank monster is lurking in the dark, just waiting for Crescent Claw to finish, before it strikes. Finally, he shoved those doors open and stepped through. The whole crew huddles at the giant stone gate, staring it down for one quick second, taking in exactly what they're up against, and then, when Gaius says the pressure smashing in from the other side of that wall is straight up insane, he throws the order, go. Galjan fires back at everyone, daring them not to back down now, and he drives home that they're still locked into the plan they swore to follow. But before they can even blink, the little fry monsters crash the area in a swarm, and Gulgan screams at Ben to get up front and smash through them. Ben braces hard and locks in. Then he charges his heavy shield knight skill to stand his ground and hold the line for the whole group. Then he blasts out a massive roar, unleashing his provoked skill to force every monster to lock onto him and ignore his friends completely. Ben rockets straight into the chaos, shield up high, cutting down the first wave of monsters before they can even reach him. Larisha wastes 0 seconds. She unleashes a High Priest special skill and slams a massive barrier down around the whole group. Ben's staying out of the main offensive, staying right in the chaos so he can keep the small fry busy and only worry about eating attacks while Larisha handles all the backstage chaos. She's out there blasting debuffs on the monsters, keeping everyone's HP steady and stacking buffs like they're going out of style. The whole fight erupts with everyone perfectly locked in, until it all just once it clicks that the party isn't the only one carrying the weight around here. The Draconix mounts thunder down the stone hallway, shrieking at the top of their lungs, itching to rip something apart the second they get the chance. These magic beasts are absolute powerhouses, and they kick things off. They tear into the enemies with teeth and claws, and then no rules, no thoughts, just pure wild instinct taking over. While the mounts roar and Ben keeps the crowd on their toes, the rest of the team spots a crack in the chaos and rushes through it, all set to strike. Then he surged forward and sprinted right for the lick. Jurgen and his crew barrel forward with 0 hesitation, fully certain their backs are protected while Gaius matches his speed, then leans in to say the rest of the party has truly latched onto Jurgen. Jurgen stares dead ahead, saying they're not the same people anymore, the ones who used to dump every problem on Gaius. Gaius just flashes this small smile, stunned by how wildly his old friend has changed. Jurgen snaps into focus on the skeletal monster ahead, shouting that they've got to take out the giant threat right in front of them, no distractions. He yells back, fully locked in, as he prepares to unleash everything, and Jurgen hurls a full-force swing, putting everything he's got into it. God slammed down a brutal, heavy punch straight into the monster. Turns out a little lick can actually condense its magic until it turns rock solid, then wear that crushing power like a heavy cloak. That thick wave of magic crashes over him like armor, and so, because it's pure mana, it's so tough it basically shrugs off Jurgen's holy attack, like it's nothing. He attacks like it's nothing at all. Even with Jurgen's crushing swing, it looks like that first strike barely scratched him. But right then, the lick freezes mid-swing, right when the rest of the party spots their opening and strikes. Chance Hannah. She pours every ounce of power into it. Her spell is right on the edge of being unleashed, and she's locked in, dead focused, like she's about to unleash everything. While hoisting her staff high, she kicks off the final chant and declares, loud and fearless, that she's taking command on her own authority. She leans in and whispers to the flames and lightning, like they can hear her. She snapped into motion and begged the sky for a violent storm, one that would unleash lightning and scorch every last ounce of evil right in front of her. Hannah screams the name of her ultimate move, *** insanity lightning rain ***, and an insane surge of energy starts hammering down on the lick. The monster gets absolutely crushed as lightning bolts slam into it from every single direction, and the whole place erupts in one gigantic blast of magic and deafening sound, like it should have instantly torn everything apart. When the smoke finally thins, Hannah plants her feet and holds her breath, staring for any sign it worked, only to spot the monster still standing there. It turns out that Lick slammed up a magic barrier just as the spell struck, and it protected everyone, snapping itself out of that brutal, roaring assault. Hannah's high-tier thunder magic crashes and burns, then fails to land the hit, to rip the monster down for good. But Myria just smirks, like she's been waiting her whole life for this exact moment. Right before the move, when everything clicks and it's time to strike, she darts forward like a flash, yanking her sword free the moment she closes pouring every ounce of strength into one brutal, high-speed swing as her blade, and blasts a massive burst of light straight through the lick. She drops a flawless critical hit, riding the opening carved by those earlier attacks so that lick finally lands, and for the first time today, it actually hits for real damage. The monster finally stops messing around, snarls like a raging storm, and then boom, it unleashes this ferocious wave of dark, skull-shaped energy, and the entire party gets slammed by the blast, sent flying backward by sheer force. Gaius tore through the smoke and dust, scanning frantically, yelling to everyone, "You all okay after that massive blast?" Gulgan clutches his sword with white-knuckle rage, and shouts back that he's barely keeping it together. Clenching her teeth, Hannah gripped on tight as it tried to steal the heat with every lick. Shana plants her focus, fires up her next spell and screams that she's charging in again right now, and her mana has to be restored immediately. Gaius doesn't even blink. He tells her to hand it to him and walk away. He yanks out a potion and keeps charging forward. He winds up and hurls a high-grade mono potion across the battlefield with a perfectly timed throw. And just like that, the bottle shatters perfectly, wham, A massive surge of mana bursts out, splashing Hana and Galjan from head to toe. Hana shoots him a grateful thanks, and Galjan leans in like, honestly, Gaius is the kind of guy you want around, so Gaius. Ojais just stands there, wearing a calm, quiet smile, soaking up every second like it's his moment. He suddenly gets hit with this intense, weird pressure in his chest, so wild he can't even find the words for it. And it smacks him. This is the very first one. It was the very first time the Crescent Claw party ever thanked him mid-fight. Galjan actually blurts out thanks, and Gaius he's just frozen there, soaking it all in, because this is the first time he's ever heard those words come out of their mouths. The lick is still hanging in the air, like it refuses to let go. Right there, amid all that choking smoke and crackling energy, the monster tears the air with a brutal roar, and Gaius keeps his eyes locked on it, thinking, so far, this is going way too smooth. He knows that once they pile up enough damage, the lick is about to kick into its next phase, so it'll probably try to rocket upward and slam them with a huge area of effect spell to wipe the whole area clean. Yet Gaius just keeps his gaze pinned. On target, everything's lining up perfectly, just like it's supposed to. His plan lands perfectly, and the monster charges straight toward the weak spot Miria cracked open earlier. He yanks his weapon back and roars that he's about to unleash a magic arrow. Right now. He mixes the arrow with a splash of holy water, then boom, the blast detonates straight into the lick's chest. Gia promised that this would finally rip the rest of the monster's magic mantle clean, away for good. Golgan screams that this is the opening Gaius handed them, fires the team up to keep the pressure crushing forward, and Larisha nods in full agreement. Galgan and Myria move in together, slam a huge combined attack right into Lick's body, and then hand. And Hana whips her staff across again and again, stacking even more magic damage while the monster staggers in its own misery. Ben and Larisha stay behind, teeth clenched, gripping the horses tight, keeping watch as the crew battles that monster game. Gaius grips his bow and watches the fight like it's a threat that won't quit, muttering under his breath that this thing is way too stubborn. He knows if he doesn't end this right now, the fight will chew through him bit by bit until there's nothing left to give. He starts plotting how to finish the lick once and for all, reaching back and snatching a scroll from. He slams his bag on his shoulder, telling himself there's no choice left. He has to push himself even harder. So yeah, Gaius plants his gaze like a blade, locks in with total focus, and braces for one final, game-ending move. And he rips a holy attribute scroll out of his pack. He whipped out the scroll and let it flood his next shot with pure holy power. Gia clenches his teeth as raw magic energy crackles in the air around him. They kept spinning around him, and the strain ripped a pained grunt right out of his throat. He yanks the bowstring back, unleashes a colossal holy arrow, and drives it straight into the lick with a blinding burst of light. Gaius erupts in a furious shout that he's using his own body to sharpen all this magic power, screaming as the energy hits its breaking point. Myria spots the opening, then blasts through the chaos, staying crouched and low. He lets the light spill in, flooding the whole area, and Hana just freezes in place, eyes wide, stunned as she watches. Gaius pulled off something she swore was impossible. Gaius fixes his gaze on the target, roars that it ends right now, and keeps his eyes locked on the monster as he stays locked in on the shot. You can see the sheer strain on his face, like every ounce of effort is holding that power perfectly steady. He's ripping power from that holy attribute scroll, boosting his strength like crazy, but the magic is absolutely wrecking him from the inside. This is pure recklessness. He's basically burning his own body to squeeze out this much power, so right now it's a brutal double-edged sword. There's no way his body can keep this pace up much longer. Miria is totally freaking out, like pure panic is bursting out of her. Panic hits him and he blurts out Gaius' name like a desperate scream as the energy around him surges. The holy arrow finally yanks free from the bowstring, and with a deafening asterisk blast, it detonates into blinding light, flooding the whole room. Gaius erupts in a massive yell, bracing against the shot's brutal kickback as he pours every last ounce of power into the attack. That beam snaps in instantly and smashes straight into the very heart of the lick, and the monster's body suddenly cracks apart, shattering into a million pieces as the holy magic pounds it into ruin. Their breathing came in ragged bursts, and as the smoke from the explosion began to drift and settle, they looked completely wiped out. Miria stares with wide, shining eyes and blurts out, "So you finally managed to kill it." But the lick's skull slices through the darkness again, showing up like it's barely clinging on. It didn't even put a dent. It lets out this insane screech that rattles the entire area, then you realize it snaps back into the sky with a desperate lunge, still roaring with fight left in it. He surged forward, ready to go on the offensive,